Chapter 3680. Arbor's cold voice abruptly spread throughout the entire pavilion. Everyone's hearts, which had been ignited by the 4 god-tier and above medicinal herbs, inexplicably cooled down in an instant. Elder Bai's eyes were slightly angry. He turned to look at his granddaughter-in-law, his pair of bright old eyes revealing traces of light. She must stay alive to find the Phoenix Wood. Before the end of this year, she must concoct the soul-returning pill that, Xian needs. Arbor sneered coldly. Her? Huh. What kind of attitude is that? Elderby was instantly angered by Sir Jojo's arrogance. If I say she can't, then she can't, Arbor said coldly. If I say I want to deal with someone from Tianyun, then I must deal with her. It's useless for anyone to stop me. Bastard, Elderby roared angrily. Take this person down, Arbor said coldly in a low voice. Instantly, countless figures approached Shan Yi-Su, whose expression had changed abruptly. Who dares to make a move? Third City Lord was anxious. He couldn't help but turn to Elderby and shout, Old City Lord, are you just going to watch a god-tier alchemist fall in front of you like this? Bai Sheng's face was ashen. He suddenly leaped to Shan Yi-Su's side and pressed his palm on her left shoulder. A strong burst of holy power burst out from his body, instantly flinging away a dozen purple forest guards who had swarmed over. Emolian secretly cried out in his heart. He didn't even have time to give Elderby a look, and Elderby had made such an impulsive move. Sure enough, when he lowered his head, he saw that his little wife's expression was incomparably ugly. Before he could react, he saw the little fellow rush over. With a flick of her hand, hundreds of force-binding talismans were thrown over. He shouted angrily, The person who dares to stop me in this world hasn't been born yet. Today, whoever dares to stop me from killing her will be my, Arbor's, mortal enemy. If you want to come, then come at me together. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of flickering talisman arrays smashed down at the same time, tightly trapping Elderby and Shan Yi-Su in place. At the same time, the old man's expression changed abruptly, and his saint energy crackled. Arbor's figure flashed, and he was already in front of the old man. She stood in the air in front of everyone. Her red clothes fluttered in the wind, and her icy eyes were filled with anger. The 10th jade slip of the golden talisman Jade Tome was activated during the battle. Arbor's finger naturally moved in the air, and a blue talisman suddenly formed in the air. In the blink of an eye, it flew in front of the old master. After so many years of diligent practice and experience, a heaven-level great symbol master had naturally achieved void talisman drawing. Bang! The attack talisman formed in the void formed a small storm and heavily swept in front of the old man. If it was not for the old man's large-scale Saint Power defensive shield that blocked the attack, Shan Yi-Su would have been dead by now. Mo Lusheng immediately jumped up from the dragon throne, his eyes staring at his daughter-in-law in shock, forgetting to speak for a long time. Void talisman crafting, void talisman drawing. Without any external assistance, no talisman brush, and no cinnabar, she simply drew a blue attack talisman in the void and threw it at the old man. This was a true talisman crafting genius. At this time, the people of the aristocratic families in the hall all stood up. Everyone on the Mu family's side stared at the little crown princess without blinking, their eyes revealing a shocked expression. Chapter 3681. Creating talismans out of thin air was a unique skill that had been lost for a long time. In the past, they had only read about it in ancient texts. After a great talisman practitioner absorbed and communicated with the chi of heaven and earth, it was possible that they could create talismans out of thin air. But flipping through ancient texts was one thing. Seeing it before their eyes was another matter altogether. Everyone was staring at the little girl in front of them in shock. Truly, the little crown princess's sudden outburst shocked everyone, and they also felt as if their hearts had suffered a heavy blow. This heavy atmosphere weighed down on everyone's mood during the new year. The little crown princess expressionlessly stood in the air, her small hands flying back and forth, as nimble and beautiful as a butterfly fluttering through flowers. As her fingers moved, one blue attack talisman after another was produced. They gradually turned into purple talismans, purple talismans, purple talismans. Everyone's eyeballs were about to fall out of their sockets. They looked at the little crown princess, who was still exerting her strength, in bewilderment. They only felt that their eyes were not enough to see, and their hearts seemed to have been struck again. They revealed a hopeless expression. Was this the difference between a genius and a mediocre person? From creating talismans out of thin air to directly creating blue talismans out of thin air, then suddenly turning them into purple talismans. This process probably couldn't be described with a quarter of an hour. Patriarch Mu somersaulted and nearly fell to the ground. If it weren't for Mu Jingrue and Mu Jingyuan swiftly supporting him, the old patriarch would probably have already fallen to the ground. At this very moment, Arbor's surroundings had already been enveloped by a huge talisman energy vortex. She stood in the middle and coldly stared at Old Master by in front of her, as well as Shan Isu, who was being protected by him. Shan Isu didn't know why, but she felt a sudden chill invade her heart. She didn't expect that a mere little girl could make her feel a trace of shudder and fear with just her aura pressure. She didn't want to admit it, but the truth didn't allow her to quibble. If you don't die today, how will I have the face to continue living in this world? Arbor coldly finished this sentence and raised her hand. Everyone saw a dazzling golden light radiate before their eyes, and it was as if it had stolen all the colors in the world in that instant. Emolien was greatly shocked. Just as she was about to run up, Duan Yu grabbed her arm. "You brat, if you don't want to add fuel to the fire, then stand here and watch." Duan Yu glanced at him and patted his back. He looked at him sympathetically. "It's better for your grandfather to suffer a bit than to suffer Jojo's disdain in the future." Emolien rolled her eyes at him. "Do you think I'm going to stop them? If I go over to help her, Jojo will be at a disadvantage. The old man isn't someone easy to deal with. He was someone who was about to step into the ultimate god realm. If it wasn't for his mother, he would have ascended to the sacred region a long time ago." Duan Yu withdrew his claws and said with a nod, "All right then, you go and lure your family's patriarch away. I'll go deal with that third city lord." The two of them glanced at each other. Just as they were about to make their move, they heard Old Master Mu Jia exclaim, "Saint Grade Gold Talisman. It's a Saint Grade Gold Talisman." Everyone in the Talisman patrician family couldn't resist prostrating themselves in worship. They put their palms together and exclaimed, "A Saint Grade Gold Talisman has appeared. It's a Saint Grade Gold Talisman." At the same time, Arbor had already flicked open that Saint Grade Gold Talisman summoning talisman. His chilly little face revealed a murderous intent. "Eat her." Chapter 3682. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone suddenly felt as if the temperature around them had dropped below freezing point. The temperature that was supposed to be warm in June now felt as if winter had descended. Not only was it extremely gloomy and cold, but that chill also drilled into their bones, freezing them so much that they couldn't help but tremble and stomp. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and Little Tai Sui took advantage of the chaos to appear beside Emolien and Duan Yu. Because this abruptly chilling atmosphere instantly descended, completely covering the scent of the opening of the spirit domain. Thus, no one present noticed where these two extra people had popped out from. Bam! A shattering sound came from the roof of the Feiyue Pavilion. The ground trembled along with the tremors, causing everyone to feel dizzy. They couldn't even tell which direction they were in. Run, run. It was unknown which old lord risked his life to yell these words. All the fools immersed in the crisis instantly seemed to have received a unified command and hastily sprinted out of the Feiyue Pavilion. However, due to the earth quaking and mountains swaying, they ran crookedly and truly couldn't move very quickly. When they rushed to the entrance of the Feiyue Pavilion, their path was suddenly blocked by a pile of bricks and stones. The tiles and rubble at the entrance crackled as they fell. The two unlucky fellows running at the front were smashed in the face by the bricks and stones, and their heads bled as they screamed in fear. This time, everyone was so frightened that they stopped in their tracks and continuously retreated. In the end, they were forced back into the main hall of the Feyua Pavilion. The chancellors were about to die from regret, sure enough. Starting a fight at the slightest disagreement was truly something that the little crown princess was capable of. Didn't they say to finish eating early and leave early? Great. They only had enough time to eat 2 mouthfuls of hot soup and savor 3 pieces of meat before the banquet was freaking disrupted again. No one was to blame except for that damn third city lord of the City of Shadows. Why did you bring a woman to disgust the little crown princess for no reason? If this woman didn't appear, everyone would still be enjoying themselves. Little Tai Sui sniffed, and a serious look appeared on its delicate little face. I seem to smell the scent of a primordial beast. The venerable peach blossom immortal couldn't resist rolling his eyes. It's already here. Saint-Clothed Sue let out a scream, and then her voice suddenly stopped. There was no other reason. The void was torn open, revealing a mass of black mist. A sharp claw stretched out from within. It looked like a dragon, but it was not a dragon. It looked like a phoenix, but it was not a phoenix. Its claws and fangs were extremely sharp, and it tore through the old man's Saint Energy shield in an instant. Its claws landed on Sean Su's body, and it clawed with force. Saint-Clothed Sue let out a frightened scream. Then he felt a chill on his left shoulder. A large piece of skin and bone was torn off by the claw, and blood and flesh were thrown to the ground. She was in so much pain that she couldn't speak. She rolled around on the ground. She glared fiercely at Arbor and screamed, "Lunatic! Lunatic! You lunatic! Everyone in Tianyun is crazy. Everyone has the right to punish them." Arbor interrupted her coldly. "Why do you have to say that I'm from Tianyun? I'm the disciple of the third city lord. I'm from the City of Shadows." That sharp claw stretched out from the mass of black mist again and tore off one of her arms, throwing it to the ground. Saint-Clothed Sue almost fainted on the spot from the pain. "Your body has the smell of Tianyun," the little crown princess said coldly. Chapter 3683. What's so difficult about knowing if you're Tianyun's person or not? Arbor stood in the air, coldly looking at the woman in front of him without a trace of pity in his eyes. "As long as we cut open your skull and rummage through it, we'll be able to see it. Tianyun's people will have a black crystal the size of a grain of rice in their skull." Arbor looked at her, a trace of coldness slipping through his lips. "That 18th sister. We've researched it in our small base. The reason why she was able to run and jump while half of her body was because the tiny black crystal in her skull hadn't been destroyed." Xiaomu tapped her own head as she gazed icily at Shawnee Sue and said, "To nurture such a young divine-level pill refiner in this world, the amount of money and time that Heavenly Fortune has invested, as well as a lot of time and energy, is probably not small. But you're too anxious. Anxious to get close to your goal. Anxious to enter our core. Anxious to humiliate me. Anxious to make my life uncomfortable for the mastermind behind the scenes. You're willing to be driven by others. You're so anxious, it's easy to reveal flaws. You're too stupid, so stupid that I can't bear to look at you. Tianyun wants to make you into a god-level alchemist respected by the world. He wants to use your young alchemy skills to master the alchemy of the 3 states and become the leader of the Alchemist Alliance, right? But why do you have to provoke me at this time? Do you know the corpse puppet's crystal core?" Arbor stretched out his little finger and tapped his little head. "It's right here. When you kill the corpse puppet, you destroy its crystal core. It will be completely useless like a useless puppet. And this little black crystal in your skull is the same as 18th Sisters. It's something that can be upgraded. It needs a lot of medicine to refine it. Normal days must be hard to endure." Arbor looked at her coldly. "As an alchemist, you must have mastered a part of the core refining technique. If I ask you to tell the truth," Arbor's eyes instantly became incomparably cold, revealing traces of cold light. "I don't know if the curse in your body will backfire and turn you into an idiot." No. Shawnee Sue fell to the ground and crawled back a few steps in fright. He waved his hand in front of his eyes and cried out in alarm, "You devil. You won't have a good end. You vicious woman. You will not have a good ending. I didn't have a good ending a long time ago. Arbor pulled out a vine whip from his sleeve and slapped Sean Isu's face heavily. I, who didn't have a good ending, crawled out from the depths of hell. He had passed through the gates of hell and walked through the sea of fire. Now is the time for you to tremble, be terrified, and scream. No, I'm not Tianyun's person. I'm really not Tianyun's person. Sean Isu felt a deep sense of fear at this moment. She rolled and crawled, dragging a long trail of blood on the ground. She crawled towards Mo Lien and cried out with a pleading face. Your Highness, I'm really not Tianyun's person. I only adore you wholeheartedly. It's its crown princess. She's jealous by nature. It's her nonsense. Before she could finish her sentence, she was kicked out by Mo Lien like trash. My Jojo, why should I be jealous of you? Who do you think you are? You can't even compare to a hair of hers. Chapter 3684. Who cares about your baffling adoration? It's simply disgusting to the extreme. If you dare to spout nonsense again, we will gouge out your tongue. Mo Lien bellowed, her eyes emitting a cold, electrifying glint. Single-clothed Sue landed heavily on the ground, nearly fainting on the spot from the pain. But strangely, her head felt abnormally clear than at any other time. She felt 10 levels of pain all over her body, as if her entire body was suffering from the pain of 1,000 cuts. This inhumane torture actually didn't make her faint from the pain. Based on her intuition as a pill alchemist, she could clearly understand one thing now. The little crown princess in front of her had tampered with her body. Single-clothed, Sue shakily took out a medicine bottle from her sleeve. Just as she was about to open the bottle and take out a pill, her wrist was struck by a palm wind. Duanyu walked up a few steps and kicked with the tip of his foot, scooping up that bottle and pouring it out to look at the pill. Mo Lien reached out to take it and threw it into the bottle before tossing it to Tong behind her. Send it to Beiwang Valley. Sending it to Beiwang Valley meant sending it to Mr. Su Xuetao at the small base. Research was still ongoing. One day, they would be able to completely grasp the medicinal trick of heavenly fate that tempered the human body and find a way to crack it. Single-clothed, Sue wept bitterly as she pounded the ground with all her might. She reached out to grab in the third city lord's direction. My master. However, the third city lord was somewhat strained at this time. He was being forced to retreat step by step by the little white squirrel, Chochio, who was pestering him. How could he spare a hand to support her? Just as Bai Sheng was about to move, Mo Lien reached out to stop him. Grandfather, you still want to fight with the primordial ferocious beast? That primordial ferocious beast didn't even show its face earlier. It only revealed a claw from the black fog, and it tore open Grandfather's defensive barrier. One could imagine how powerful its overall strength was. Jojo didn't use force on him because he was Lien's grandfather. If he really angered this little fellow, it would probably be disastrous. Bai Sheng's face darkened, and he angrily said to his grandson, It doesn't matter if she's from Tianyun or not. She can save your mother. She can't. Mo Lien sighed helplessly. Grandfather, you're experienced and knowledgeable, so you should be very clear about this. The success rate of a god-level alchemist concocting the soul-returning pill was less than 10%. You must know that as well. Even if it's only 5%, I still have to try. Your mother can't afford to delay any longer. Bai Sheng was fuming with rage as he blurted out. Mo Liuxing's expression instantly changed. Mo Lien couldn't help but take a step forward and grab her grandfather's hand. What did you say? Wasn't his mother safe and sound in the ice? What did he mean by he couldn't afford to drag it out? Ordinary nutrient solutions are completely useless to your mother. Elder Bai seemed to have aged a lot in an instant, and his entire person became dispirited. Even if there's only a 5% success rate, there's still a 5% chance. Do you understand, little Mo? Your father was afraid that you would be worried, so he never told you. Your mother's situation has now reached a critical juncture of life and death. I have a way, Arbor said coldly. Elder Bai was stunned, and then he abruptly turned to look at the little girl. This was the first time he looked at the little crown princess in front of him after entering Feyua Pavilion. Such a young girl, but her aura was extremely strong. In his rage, just now, the entire Feyua Pavilion's thousands of people didn't dare to speak. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he intimidated everyone present. Chapter 3685. Bai Sheng's face showed a trace of puzzlement and even a hint of hesitation. You just said you have a way? Yes. Arbor threw him a cold look with an expressionless face. From the moment the old man appeared until now, he had been standing on the opposite side of her. He didn't care about right or wrong. He just wanted to go against her and save Shan Yisu. This made her impression of old Master Lin drop to the bottom for a moment. Shan Yisu was of no help to Lian's mother at all, but he didn't listen to a word from others. What a stubborn old man. If you don't believe me, ask her to make pills on the spot. Arbor said coldly. Just ask her to make a god-level pill and see if she can make it. The third city lord turned his head angrily, but was swept back a few steps by Chocho's tail. Don't you slander me. What you mean is that my city of shadows colluded with Tianyan? Huh. The third city lord sneered. Everyone knows that. My city of shadows transcends the three states and has never fought for fame and fortune. We have always lived our own idle lives. Why should we work for Tianyan? Shut up. The little crown princess turned her head and shouted angrily. Don't you understand human language? It's her who wants to put the shit on her head. How much do you know about this disciple? How much do you know? The third city lord's old face tightened. For a moment, he couldn't answer her question and looked embarrassed. Arbor waved his little hand and threw more than a dozen herbs in front of Shan Yisu. Make it on the spot. If you can make it within an hour, I will spare your dog life. Shan Yisu struggled to move her body. At this time, she had a broken arm and a flower on her head. Her whole body was covered in blood, and she looked quite miserable. Her eyes were full of hatred as she stared at the little crown princess in front of her. If her eyes could kill, she would probably swallow her into her stomach and chew her into pieces. Are you kidding me? Third City Lord couldn't help but complain for his disciple. There are so many medicinal herbs here. What kind of god-level medicinal pills do you want her to make? And it needs to be completed within 2 hours? As everyone knew, witch alchemists didn't have to spend a lot of time and effort to refine a pill. Some of them even worked their hearts out. What? You don't even understand medicinal herbs? Arbor smirked and pointed at the coiled medicinal herb in front of Shan Yisu. What is this? Do you know him? Shan Yisu covered her bleeding broken arm and glared at Arbor with anger in her eyes. She screamed, You vicious woman! What do you want to do this time? Hemostasis pill. Arbor tilted his little head at her, his eyes coldly falling on her. A divine tier hemostasis pill. You've never concocted one before, divine grade alchemist. She glanced at her mockingly. Shan Yisu was stunned. Her eyes shrunk as she looked at the materials on the ground. Xiao Mu had tossed those materials on the ground like trash since they were small. There were grass, flowers, leaves, roots, and even soil. It was a mess. She looked at it and felt that it was extremely messy. A divine grade alchemist can't even differentiate the medicinal herbs used to make a divine tier hemostasis pill. Arbor sneered and shook her head. This is really an eye-opener. Chapter 3686. Looking at the strange looks that other people were giving her, Shan Yisu's face instantly paled. She knew that at this time, she had to show some persuasiveness. Otherwise, other people would think that she was a fraud through and through. What do you know? Shan Yisu bit her lips hard, her eyes spitting fire. I never make low-level Dan like blood-stopping Dan. Low-level? Arbor crooked her finger at her. Look clearly. She raised her little hand, and everyone felt a flash of light in front of their eyes. When they looked again, they saw a transparent glass cauldron floating above her little hand. The cauldron was completely surrounded by a glass-colored flame. This glass-colored cauldron fire looked very pure and beautiful. When it came out, all the fire attribute Shioja felt their bodies tighten. This was the suppressive power of the glass cauldron fire. This meant that this cauldron fire probably had more than 90% of its power and was comparable to holy fire. Arbor casually sucked, and the medicinal herbs that had been scattered on the ground jumped up and obediently arranged themselves in the air in front of her. The little girl casually took a medicinal herb and threw it in. In less than a second, it was swallowed by the cauldron fire and turned into a medicinal liquid that flowed down. Then her movements were so fast that people were dazzled. In a flash, she had roasted all the medicinal herbs into liquid. She drew several seals on the cauldron with one hand. She murmured to herself, "I found that when making Dan, seal masters can add purification seals to increase the quality of the medicinal liquid. In the past, I could only make purple vein Dan. Now, I can often make black vein Dan. Top-grade black vein Dan." Sean Isu's face showed a twisted expression. "What are you bragging about?" However, before she could finish her sentence, the medicinal liquid in the other person's hands had already begun to condense into a pill. "Impossible." Sean Isu shook her head, holding the broken part of her arm. She shook her head and shouted, "Impossible! How is this possible? What informing speed was this fast? Was this the Dan-making speed of a ghost? An ordinary person would need half a day to refine the most common medicinal pill, let alone a divine gray medicinal pill. Okay. Usually, when Sean Isu followed the prescription given by others to refine the god-level medicinal pill, he could complete it within a day. However, there were prerequisites. The premise was that someone else had already helped her classify the medicinal herbs and purify the medicinal liquids in order. She only needed to combine them and use the cauldron fire to condense the elixir. Would a divine great alchemist like her still need to do those most basic tasks? However, if she were to do the basic work, from the beginning of refining the medicinal liquid to the end of condensing the pill, it would only take a day. Not to mention one day, he didn't even know if he could complete it in 3 days. Moreover, how could there be no mistakes in this process? It was as if he didn't even need to use his eyes to distinguish between them. This meant that the little crown princess was very familiar with the mutual promotion and suppression of medicinal properties. She did not need to distinguish them at all. Sean Isu looked at this crown prince consort who made people feel surprised with her gaze and horror. No, it can't be, it's impossible. There is no divine great alchemist who is younger than her in this world. I am a most famous divine great alchemist in the 3 continents. Sean Isu screamed with a twisted expression. Her eyes were fixed on the small glazed cauldron in Arbor's hand. Chapter 3687. The cauldron fire boiled for a while before suddenly spitting out a black-patterned, gold-plated pill. Everyone simultaneously sucked in a cold breath. Even Old City Lord Bai, who was standing on the side with a baffled expression, widened his eyes in shock. Little glutinous dumpling. Mo Lushing anxiously grabbed his son's hand, his expression a bit agitated. Mo Lien forcefully pulled his hand away. With a cold expression, Prince Mo dryly said, "Royal father, pay attention to the situation." What was going on? Calling him by his pet name in a place with so many people, was she trying to court death or court death? On the side, Duan Yu's eyes clearly brightened, and he glanced at Mo Lien with a mocking expression, his face full of realization. "Oh, so little glutinous dumpling is your pet name." Mo Lien instantly glared at him in annoyance, but her father pulled her hand back when she turned around. "Little glutinous dumpling, why didn't you tell father earlier that your wife's pill refinement skills were so brilliant?" "I did." Mo Lien was baffled, and he glanced at the agitated Mo Lu Sheng, saying, "Didn't I say before that my wife is an earth-grade alchemist?" But from the looks of it, his wifey's pill refinement level should have increased by quite a bit. She should have entered the ranks of heaven-grade alchemists now. "You didn't say she was this impressive before." Mo Lu Sheng glared at his son in dissatisfaction. Mo Lien lowered his head in contemplation. His daughter-in-law indeed hadn't displayed her brilliant pill refinement skills in front of others before, so it was no wonder that these people were so shocked that their jaws were about to fall off. Thinking that this was his wifey, Mo Lien felt a bit pleased on the inside. This was his wifey, huh? No one should think of fighting with him over her. What was his was his. "Royal father, Jojo's pill refinement is very arduous. Mo Lucian wanted to spit at his son's face. Arduous, arduous my ass. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the little crown princess refined a black-veined pill. From refining the medicinal liquid to forming the pill, it took less than a quarter of an hour. Was this considered hard work? Arbor reached out and grabbed the black-patterned gold-plated medicinal pill that jumped out and jumped into her palm. She turned to look at one of the two young men behind the third city lord. The two of them had been subdued by the purple forest guards at the start of the fight, and they were currently being held captive by several purple forest guards. They struggled with all their might and glared angrily at him. Xiaomu gazed at them coldly. Her gaze was so frigid that it was as if she was looking at two corpses. However, it frightened the two youths who were struggling nonstop into immediately stopping their movements, and they couldn't stop trembling all over. Arbor waved his hand. The two purple forest guards understood and escorted one of the young men forward. Under Arbor's signal, one of the purple forest guards pulled out a dagger from his waist and viciously pinched the young man's arm, leaving behind a gaping wound. The young man's face turned pale with fright, and his body couldn't help but sway a bit. But very quickly, a black-patterned hemostatic pill was flicked into his mouth. Everyone instantly saw the bowl-sized wound on the young man's arm heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. The bleeding immediately stopped. In a mere half a minute, the wound had disappeared without a trace. If it weren't for the 1 or 2 drops of blood dripping down the arm, everyone would have thought that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Heavens! Was this the effect of a god-tier hemostatic pill? The speed at which it stopped bleeding was probably heaven-defying. Everyone's thoughts suddenly became active, and they looked eagerly at the little crown princess. Chapter 3688. Especially that minister from the Ministry of War. His eyes were so wide that they almost popped out. If the army could master this kind of hemostatic pill, needless to say, when an entire army fought the enemy on the battlefield, it would definitely increase their chances of victory. With such a hemostatic pill in their hands, why would they worry about not being able to win the battle? Mo Yin saw that her father was glaring at her like this, and quickly said, Jojo isn't someone who can make a god-level pill with such an effect every time. Jojo was only a heaven-grade pill refiner, and she was lucky to be able to make a god-level pill. That was what His Highness the Crown Prince meant. Mo Lusheng turned his head to look at his daughter-in-law, his eyes containing a trace of expectation, almost burning like the scorching sun. And at this time, Shani Su, who was originally lying on the ground like a dead dog, crazily got up, wanting to pounce on Arbor in front of her. She let out a sharp whistle and sternly shouted, Impossible! Impossible! How can you be such a young, god-level pill refiner? You must be lying. You're hiding something on your body. Hiding something? It's a divine tool, right? A divine tool to help you condense the pill quickly, right? You vicious woman. You can't possibly be a god-level pill refiner. I'm indeed not a god-level pill refiner. Arbor coldly interrupted her and indifferently said, I'm just a heaven-grade pill refiner. Occasionally, I can make 1 or 2 black-vein god-level pills. She glanced at her pitifully and pursed her lips. But this is already pretty good, isn't it? Compared to you, a god-level pill refiner with a false appearance. I'm a person who started from the basics of distinguishing medicinal herbs and spent a lot of effort to learn how to distinguish herbs, smell herbs, refine herbs, and concoct herbs. I should be better than you, just a little bit. Arbor gestured with 2 little fingers and indifferently said, I only dare to say that I know a little about the Tao of medicine. You're really strong. Half a bucket of water dares to pretend to be a god-level pill refiner in front of me. How did you become a god-level pill refiner? Don't you know in your heart? Stop pretending. You don't look like one at all. Pooh! Shani Su actually spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone looked at her strangely. This single-clothed Su was actually angered to the point of vomiting blood by the little crown princess words. Oh my God! How much anger must he have in his heart to be this angry? Arbor stared coldly at the wriggling woman on the ground. There was no pity in his eyes. You can only blame yourself for reaching out so far trying to lay your hands on Jojo's run. Jojo's lotus was not something that any cat or dog could touch. The little crown princess condensed an icicle in her hand and threw it at Sean Isu's face without saying a word. You can't kill me. Single-clothed, Sue was lying on the ground. She raised her head as she gasped for breath. At this moment, the icicle was only an inch away from her eyes. It was as if he took another step closer, he would be able to pierce through her eye. You can't kill me, Arbor. Single-clothed, Sue struggled to crawl half a step on the ground. She raised her head and looked at her coldly. I have a way to protect Her Majesty the Empress's life. That, even if you don't concoct a god-level pill. It can guarantee Her Majesty the Empress's life for half a year. Upon hearing this, Old City Lord Bai hastily stepped forward and stood next to the little crown princess. Just as he was about to speak, Imo Yin raised her hand to stop him. The little stoic looked coldly at that single-clothed Sue. Chapter 3689. The little stoic stared at her for a good while before curling her lips at her with an odd expression. Have you heard of the longevity fruit? Sand-clothed Sue's eyes abruptly widened as she stared fixedly at the icicle in the little crown princess's hand. It instantly expanded and pierced through her forehead with a whoosh. That icicle pierced through her forehead with a crisp ding, directly ejecting a black crystal the size of a fingernail from the back of her head. Sand-clothed Sue tried her best to widen her eyes and stared fixedly at Arbor before collapsing to the ground with a bang. Perhaps she didn't understand what was going on even until her death. How could the little crown princess really dare to do such a vicious thing to her? The entire venue was silent. Everyone stared dazedly at the collapsed sand-clothed Sue before simultaneously shifting their gazes to the black crystal on the ground. Earlier, the crown princess seemed to have said that the people of heavenly fate all had something like a black crystal in their heads. Was it this thing? What was the difference between this and a corpse puppet core? Everyone curiously sized up the fingernail-sized black crystal on the ground and furtively peeked at the expressionless little crown princess. Everyone has seen it, right? Huifeng squatted down and picked up the tiny black crystal on the ground, placing it in front of everyone as he said aloofly, "This is enough to prove that this divine rank alchemist publicly acknowledged in the 3 provinces is actually a member of Heavenly Fate." Heavenly Fate. They have now become everyone's public enemy in the 3 provinces. Huifeng clenched his fists and said to everyone, "From the looks of it now, the people of Heavenly Fate have already infiltrated every family clan and patrician family since a long time ago. They might even be right beside you and me. His Highness the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess mean that after we leave today, every family and clan should strictly investigate the backgrounds of their own family members. Anyone with an unknown background or who seems suspicious must be put under control first." The family heads looked at each other in dismay before finally electing Mu Tsong to speak. Patriarch Mu was still in shock and hadn't recovered his wits yet, so he asked weakly, But don't tell me we have to cut open their heads one by one." This method was indeed a little cruel. Huifeng said indifferently, "You can hand over all the suspects to the Crimson Forest Guard. We have a special way to deal with them. There's no need to dissect their brains." Patriarch Mu and the others nodded dubiously. And now, the banquet had come to an end. Whether it was the great emperor or the courtiers, this meal was so miserable that none of them were in the mood to continue. After the banquet ended in a hurry, the great emperor hurriedly summoned the crown prince and the crown princess to the Extreme Time Palace's imperial study. Seeing the young couple enter the room hand in hand, the emperor couldn't help but get up to welcome them. He asked anxiously, "Jojo, you said you have a way to help your mother? Is this true?" Arbor knew that this person was anxious, so he didn't hide it. He nodded and said, "Yes." The eyes of his grandfather, Bai Sheng, who was standing at the side and had not stepped forward, brightened when he heard this. It was just that he had helped pill Master Dan deal with the little girl's enemy, so he knew that the little girl wouldn't have a good impression of him for the time being. Thus, he didn't dare to step forward and incur her disdain. "Why you can save her now?" Mo Lusheng asked cautiously. Chapter 3690. Arbor shook his head and didn't beat around the bush with them, saying directly, I said that when I become a saint-level alchemist, I can definitely save her. But before that, as long as she eats the longevity fruit, her body will definitely be fine. It's fine even if her body doesn't deteriorate for 10 years. Longevity fruit? Mo Lusheng and Bai Sheng exclaimed one after the other. Arbor nodded. Can we wait for 2 months? Just now, the old man said that Imperial Mother's body wouldn't last until the end of the year. They could definitely wait until the 8th of the 8th month. Logically speaking, the longevity fruit would take 3 months to bear fruit. Arbor was already urging Little Water and Little Earth to speed up the planting of this fruit. 2 months couldn't be faster. Even if the fruit ripened, the effect would be greatly reduced. Mo Yoshing's eyes couldn't help but mist. He grabbed Arbor's hand and nodded. Okay, Imperial Father believes in you. You can definitely help your Imperial Mother get through this difficult time. Arbor nodded, but his little paw was suddenly pulled back by Mo Lien. Mo Lucian glanced at his son and pretended to be serious. All right, it's getting late. Go back and have a good rest. Old Master Bai opened his mouth and watched the young couple walk out of the door. Do you think the longevity fruit that the little girl spoke of is reliable? The old master looked at his son-in-law with a dignified expression. He was embarrassed to yell at the young couple, so he didn't pay much attention to his son-in-law. He would say whatever he wanted. Mo Lushing nodded. According to my understanding of the little girl in this period of time, this little girl usually doesn't boast. If she says the longevity fruit is feasible, then it's definitely feasible. Old Master Bai nodded. All right. He also hoped that this granddaughter-in-law really had the longevity fruit in her hands and not deliberately used it to deceive them in order to deal with that Shawnee Sioux. Mo Lucian glanced at the old master and coughed lightly. Don't worry. According to my understanding of this little girl, she won't easily promise something she isn't sure of. Looks like you have a high opinion of her. Old Master Bai looked deeply at his son-in-law. In the future, Old Master will have more contact with the little girl. Naturally, he will know. If Old Master insists on going down the path of death, even your son-in-law won't be able to help you. Mo Lushing secretly facepalmed. He knew very well that his son had already been instigated by his daughter-in-law and was completely useless. Between his wife and his grandfather, that guy would definitely stand by his wife's side. Humph. Elder Bai angrily raised his hand and patted the dust off his body. Just now, he had been forced into a fluster by that little girl's talismans. Now that he thought about it, it was really fucking embarrassing. This girl is not only an alchemist, but also a great talisman master. Now that he thought about it, he still felt a little shocked. Mo Lushing nodded. Yes, his talent is not bad. The old man curled his lips, flicked his sleeves, and walked out of the door. In the end, she said in an indignant voice, it's just that her temper is too bad. Mo Lushing, didn't you also not say anything when you came up and directly made a move to protect that Shawnee Sioux? Don't say who has a bad temper. Aren't we all straightforward and lousy? Huh. Achoo. Lord Jojo reached out to rub his little nose and looked back at the deep night. Someone must be talking bad about me. Chapter 3691. How could that be? Mo Lien hugged his wifey in amusement and rubbed her small face. I'll beat up whoever dares to speak ill of my wifey. Sir Jojo blinked. What if it's your grandfather talking about me? Mo Lien chuckled and said without hesitation, beat him up then. Let him cause a ruckus in there. He doesn't know how good Jojo is. The little fellow pursed her lips and said seriously with a taut face, your grandfather must be talking about me right now. He has a terrible temper. How could that be? Mo Lien couldn't resist laughing and tucked a strand of her hair behind her head. He then cupped her small face and looked at her intently. My Jojo's temper isn't bad. The little fellow nodded and said in full agreement, you're right. I'm usually too lazy to argue with people and don't want to get angry. That Shanisu was truly too much. If she didn't kill her and allowed her to annoy her every day, how could that be okay? Moreover, this already proved that Shanisu was a person of destiny, so she deserved to die. All right? Lien. The little fellow squeezed toward him and hugged his waist. She asked softly, now that we have time, you should honestly confess yesterday's matter. I'll confess everything. Prince Amon nodded repeatedly and sold out Duanyu without any integrity. Hey, it was Duanyu who sent me a message. That Rong Li from Tsangzhou has a hole in his head. He actually brought people to capture you. Originally, this matter was vexing enough. Who knows how many people were hoping for our wedding to go awry. Prince Imo huffed, so I contacted Duanyu in advance. He who strikes first gains the advantage. When Prince Imo said this, he truly didn't feel that he was too ruthless. Thinking about it now, he still felt some lingering fear. If Rong Li really spread the news that Jojo had a portable spirit domain, the trouble in the future would be even greater. Arbor's big, bright eyes stared straight at the man beside him. So you set up a trap and let Rong Li walk right into it? Arbor couldn't help but blink curiously. Duanyu's message was vague. So how did Rong Li know that I carried the spirit domain with me? Do you still remember Chen Baojia who escaped? Chen Baojia went to Tsangzhou. Chen Baojia was kidnapped by Ba Shu from the academy. Arbor was enlightened. No wonder I couldn't find this woman. The Chen family still insisted that I was the one who hid her. It's really strange. Chen Baojia reported me to Rong Li, and Rong Li came to arrest me. Arbor understood the course of events and said with a nod, so you and Duanyu attacked him first. But he looked perfectly fine when he attended the banquet just now. Imo Yin smiled faintly. The little guy suddenly opened his mouth wide with a look of realization on his face. I know. The Rong Li we saw at night. Imo Yin gently covered her mouth. All right. It's already very late tonight, so let's rest early. I'll take you somewhere early tomorrow morning. After the carriage arrived at the Eastern Palace, Missouri Lien carried the little fellow down and strode into the bedchamber. When Sir Jojo saw the door to the bedchamber, his entire body went limp for no reason, and he couldn't resist exclaiming, "What are you doing?" Chapter 3692. The little fellow reached out and wrapped her arms around her neck. Her expression was slightly unnatural, and she instantly wanted to change the topic. So you're saying that you and Duanyu planned this beforehand? What do you mean by premeditated? You make it sound like we're bad guys. Imo Lien frowned in dissatisfaction. This is called strategizing. Victory is decided from 1,000 miles away. If it weren't for the fact that he had to resolve Rong Li's matter as soon as possible and that there were several people who secretly wished for nothing more than his misfortune, how could he have rushed to Heaven's Saint Palace so late and caused his Jojo to suffer a bit of grievance? Don't think he couldn't find out which families were the culprits. Humph, when he settled down and freed himself, these people shouldn't even think about having an easy time in the future. Hubby, put me down. The little stoic said seriously, I made an appointment with Rotten Peach Blossom today to enter seclusion in Paradise Planet for a while. Emolyen's eyes instantly narrowed dangerously as he looked down at his wifey. One moment it's Duanyu, the next it's Rotten Peach Blossom. Wifey, you've been calling out another man's name today. Sir Jojo looked at her husband in bewilderment and closed her eyes, pretending to faint. Dizzy, hubby, I'm going to sleep. Huh. Hubby's laughter was a bit scary. What to do? It's fine, you sleep. Wifey, I'll carry you to take a bath first. The little fellow's face instantly turned bitter, and the word embarrassed was written all over her face. Hubby, it hurts. Imo Yin retracted his hand and cupped her small face. He looked at her seriously and said, It's right that hurts. Because our movements last night weren't very standard, this kind of situation requires more practice in order to make long-term progress. We'll slowly torment each other for a while, and we'll definitely be able to enter the realm of being one with the heavens. Why'd he make it sound like they were practicing martial arts? What kind of fallacious reasoning was this? Hubby always had a bellyful of bizarre reasoning, so how could she break it? This time, the little stoic also couldn't keep up the act and open her eyes. Under the moonlight, those eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. The dense moisture caused Mo Lien's heart to ripple endlessly. His fingers couldn't help but caress her small face, gently caressing it. It was so soft that it seemed like it could overflow with water. His gaze was glued to hers, as if they were going to be entangled for a long time. At this moment, their breaths were intertwined, and the heat from their bodies seemed to follow the air, completely evaporating and dispersing. The stars were shining brightly tonight. This feeling, this scene, and this heart lingered and melted into one. Jojo. He gently planted a kiss on her forehead and said in a low and hoarse voice, "Remember to block that star field." Reaching out, Yin lifted the bead curtain that was constantly colliding under the starlight and quickly carried her into the pool. Along with the sound of water that was neither fast nor slow, a soft moan that was mixed with heavy breathing blended into the night. The next morning, Mr. Jojo struggled to get out of bed with a sullen expression on his face. He was picked up by a refreshed man beside him. "Jojo." Prince Imo rubbed against her face and said with a grin, "Today's weather is really good. Look, the sun came out so early. Hubby will take you to a good place to stroll around. I guarantee you'll like it." "Where are we going?" The little fellow pulled a long face and glared at him in a huff. "Hiking in the suburbs." The man stretched out his head and pecked her on the cheek. Chapter 3693. Although that guy had carried her away to soak her in a medicinal bath, she hadn't even moved her pinky. The guy had served her the entire time. However, Sir Jojo, who was slumped in the carriage, still felt sore all over. Every part of his body didn't belong to him. Get lost. When the little fellow saw him approach, she immediately narrowed her eyes vigilantly and swept a disdainful gaze at him. Yin blinked and inched closer to her. He happily hugged his wifey as he shook his head repeatedly and said, I'll roll. I'll roll to your side. Roll here and there. Roll here and there. I won't go anywhere else." Arbor couldn't help but want to laugh. She secretly suppressed the urge to laugh and maintained her stoic expression as she snorted. Yin pulled her little hand over with a grin and kissed it hard on the lips. "Jojo, hubby hasn't seen you for a month. Don't you miss me?" She did before, but seeing how noisy this person was now, she didn't miss him at all. "Hubby missed you so much. I even brought you many gifts that you'll like." The little fellow didn't even bother to bat her eyelids. She leaned against the thick carpet and stared at him with her dark eyes. Prince Imo was overjoyed and simply reached out to carry this little one onto his lap. Without waiting for her to roll her eyes in protest, he swiped his hand and took out a black lingji mushroom of excellent quality from his inner world. The little girl instantly forgot to struggle. Her large eyes sparkled as she stared at the lingji mushroom. Her little hand involuntarily touched it. "I found this in the underground valley after the array disk in Grey Ping Village collapsed." Yin hugged her and tilted his head to rub against her neck. "Isn't it very good? It should be a God-rank medicinal ingredient." The little girl nodded vigorously. It was a God-rank medicinal ingredient, and the quality was quite good. It was really very good. This kind of black lingji mushroom could also be planted in Paradise Planet's 100 garden in the past, and it could also propagate very well. However, it had a better place to go now. In Forest Planet, with the blessing of time, this black lingji mushroom should be able to grow into a patch in no time. A hint of joy appeared on the little girl's face. Yin was so good at reading people's body language. Noticing that his wife was happy, he immediately took advantage of the situation and turned the little fellow's small face to face him with a serious expression. Jojo returned the favor. The little fellow stared blankly for a moment, his eyes wide open as he stared at him. Crown Prince Imo instantly revealed a pitiful, "My heart hurts so much. My heart is broken. I can't take it anymore. Chow chow. You've hurt me" expression. He clutched his chest and cried out in agony. "Chow chow. Chow chow, you're bad. In the past, whenever you gave me a gift, I would consciously give you a gift in return. Now that it's my turn to give you a gift, why aren't you giving me a gift in return?" Really? Sir Jojo had a confused look on his face. "What gift in return? Why do I feel like I've been trapped by this two-faced guy? You don't remember." The little fellow looked at him accusingly, making Jojo feel a little uneasy. "It's not that I don't remember. the little fellow said stubbornly. Then return the favor. Mo Yin winked at him. Oh, Arbor was thinking hard about how to return the favor when Mo Yin suddenly hugged him and pressed him against her. You really forgot. Bad guy. Then your husband will come and get it himself. Mo Yin muttered, his phoenix eyes shining. Chapter 3694. Arbor was taken aback. Just as his lips were about to touch hers, she finally remembered this fellow's so-called return gift seemed to be an indecent kiss. When she was still a child, this fellow used this method to trick her into thinking that she was young and ignorant. God knows how many kisses he had cheated from her. Sir Jojo wanted to push his face away, but her small hand was immediately wrapped in his palm. Jojo, I still have a gift for you. This fellow was so mean he took out one gift after another, then asked for a return gift. Arbor didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the pile of herbs by his legs. Along the way, the two of them spent their time returning gifts back and forth. When they were about to reach the villa in the suburbs, Arbor threw the herbs in a forest planet and let little Two be responsible for planting them. Afterward, she hammered this indecent fellow and grumpily said, "Let me ask you something. You just said that there's a formation disk under Grayfield Village? A talisman array?" "It's a talisman array." Mo Yin thought of the holy stone's location, and her phoenix eyes narrowed. "I suspect that there's a holy vein in the valley I fell into. I plan to ask Hui Feng to bring a bunch of brats from the Purple Forest Guard to dig there in 2 days. She originally wanted to send Hui Feng to Mount Heaven Saint to mine, but now it seemed that Grayfield Village was the best place. In any case, the remaining zombies there had all been wiped out by them. Even if there were a few that slipped through the net, they wouldn't be a problem at all. Now that the problem of safety was resolved, the matter of the holy vein had to be settled as soon as possible. Knowing that there was such a large holy vein, but not touching it didn't fit Mo Lian's personality. Our dear Hui Feng, who was far away in Grayfield Village, couldn't help but sneeze and look up at the sky in confusion. Holy vein? It sounded a bit familiar. Sir Jojo blinked. You mean that you found a holy vein in the talisman array under Grayfield Village? Mo Lian nodded. Yes, I reckon that the holy vein is quite large. So the branch of the ball that was left by your side absorbed a large amount of holy stone, right? Mo Lian was stunned. She lowered her head and looked at Jojo from head to toe. Did it affect you? Arbor shook his head. It affected Little Tree. He went into seclusion and hasn't woken up yet. Oh, Mo Lian nodded. Then it shouldn't be a problem. After I shattered the formation disk in Gray Plain Village, I came out and met up with Hui Feng and the others. After that, in order to save time, Little Seven and I returned to Dragonflame City. However, we encountered a lot of resistance along the way. Mo Lian's eyes narrowed slightly. The Qin estate is adding fuel to the fire, as well as the Long and Gu families. I'm a little surprised that the Lin family's patriarch from Rong City is also involved in this matter. The Lin family wants to develop in Dragonflame City, Arbor said coldly. This will depend on whether the lives of his disciples are tough enough. Mo Lian curled her lips mockingly and continued. We were ambushed by a large group of people on the 10-mile slope. In order to replenish my holy power, I took out the holy stones. Ball's Vine, thinking of that scene, Mo Lian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That thing was like a mouse that had fallen into a rice bowl. When it saw the holy stones, it desperately crawled over and stuck to them. In the end, it absorbed less than 3 holy stones on its own. The remaining dozens of holy stones all went into the vine's stomach. It made everyone speechless. Chapter 3695. This really is a sentient tree, Mo Lian ridiculed. It only has a vine branch, yet it knows how to snatch food from others. Arbor's eyes curved. Lian, while you were at Graping Village, I also did a lot of things. The little fellow was in the mood to talk for once. She recounted to Mo Lian everything that happened in the Mu family's Chuyang Pavilion without stopping. Then she blinked and said to him, I think that the sacred vein you found in Graping Village should have been left to me by Patriarch Chao Yang. Didn't you say that there were layers of talisman arrays left behind by a heaven-level talisman master outside? It should have been done by Patriarch Xiaoyang. Yin thought carefully and couldn't help but nod with a smile. It really is very possible. Then do you want to go? Yin rubbed his wife's head. If you want to go, let's go together. Arbor pondered for a few seconds and made a sound of agreement. She nodded. Of course I have to go, but I heard that the Academy's Tianyuan ranking is about to open. I want to find time to go back to the sect. Eldest senior sister has been awake for a few days. I should send her back first and reunite with second martial uncle and the others. The carriage suddenly shook and a cry of surprise came from outside. They had already reached the south of the city and the carriage was heading towards the capital suburbs. The carriage abruptly came to a stop after a sudden movement. Yin grasped the little fellow's hand and hugged her. Her voice faintly traveled out through the curtain. What is it? Arbor pursed her lips. This guy was one face in front of others and another in front of her. He was especially good at bewitching people. For example, he took off his clothes and turned into a beast. Put on clothes. He was well dressed, but he couldn't change the nature of a bad guy, reporting to your highness. The road ahead is blocked. Change the road. Yin ordered coldly. Your highness. The coachman hurriedly said, the outside is blocked by the crowd, and we can't turn into the left side road. Yin lifted the curtain of the carriage with one hand and glanced outside. Sure enough, there was a sea of people in front of them. Even the crossroads were full of people. The two of them got off the carriage hand in hand. When they turned around, the road behind them was also blocked by the crowd and carriages. They were in a dilemma. What's up ahead? The little stoic asked curiously. I don't know. Why is the road suddenly so congested? Complaints could be heard from the crowd. A woman standing next to their carriage stealthily glanced at Xiao Mu and Yin, and she was secretly speechless. Suddenly, she felt a chill on the back of her feet. The woman looked down and hurriedly took a few steps back. She cried out, "Oh my, where did such cold water come from?" At this moment, the little stoic was currently standing on a stool. When she lowered her head to look, sure enough, she saw a layer of water flowing over from the direction of the city gates, mixed with a multitude of miscellaneous roars. Move aside, move aside, move aside, all of you move aside. Wow, aren't these people from the Long family? What are they doing? Where are they transporting with so many carriages? This bunch of grandsons blocked the road ahead and behind. Everyone was grumbling, and the little stoic also jumped off the stool. However, before her feet touched the ground, she felt her small body being picked up by Prince. The ground is very wet. Yin looked down and disdainfully lifted her feet. The surface of his brocade boots was already wet from the water. Chapter 3696. Arbor lowered her head and looked in the direction of the Long family's carriages. Sure enough, she saw the Long family's dozens of guards, cursing and shoving the passers-by, trying their best to pull the carriages over. The main reason was that they had more than a dozen carriages. If they passed one by one, it wouldn't be blocked. But they had to line up, squeezing in front and back, taking up the entire road. The passers-by complained incessantly. The carriages on the other side and the pedestrians' carriages behind them couldn't pass at all. In addition, the Long family's carriage was like dragging a large coffin. The carriage was nailed all around with nails. Not even a small window was opened. But there were rows of thin holes on the carriage walls, as if to let people breathe. Water flowed out from the holes. More than a dozen carriages were of the same design. Over time, the water flowing out from the holes gradually made the entire street wet. Arbor's eyes gradually narrowed. Her heart felt inexplicably heavy, as if her breathing was being suppressed. Looking at the carriage's design, her heart overflowed with a trace of a bad premonition. At this time, the Long family was negotiating with the carriages blocking the road in front, asking them to quickly move to the sides. The carriages and pedestrians were squeezed together. Everywhere, there were pedestrians shouting and crying. It was so noisy that it gave people a headache. Get out of the way! Get out of the way! Get out of the way! The Long family guard leading the group held a whip and rode his horse to Yin and Arbor's side. Then he was startled. He saw the symbol of a Black Clan dragon on the carriage's emblem. The Long family guard leader was so frightened that he almost rolled off his horse. This was the MO royal family's emblem. This kind of emblem, other than the emperor, only the crown prince could be used as a symbol of identity. He didn't dare to be rash. He quickly flipped off his horse and rushed forward to pay his respects. Greetings, greetings to your highness. The Long family is so imposing. Mo Lien coldly said, the entire street in the South City is owned by your Long family. No, it's a misunderstanding. The Long family's guard leader hurriedly shook his head and said with a smile, it's this commoner and the other's fault. It's just that there were too many goods this time, which was why we were in the way. Don't worry, your highness. I'll move the carriage over. The Long family's guard didn't dare to ask the crown prince's carriage to let them pass. He yelled at the guards behind him, telling them to quickly turn the carriage around and make way for the crown prince's carriage. Arbor looked coldly at this person's behavior and suddenly said, open the carriage. The guard leader couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment before quickly shaking his head. No, crown princess, these dozen carriages of goods are extremely important. They're all seafood and can't be exposed to the light. They've all been sealed by the water spirit master's barrier. Once it's opened, it'll leak. Then I'll give to the guests. That way it won't be too fresh. Seafood? Arbor's eyes coldly stared at the people in front of her. She waved her hand and said, open it. A group of purple forest guards immediately rushed forward, unsheathing the swords at their waists and slashing down at the carriage. Bang! Crack! The carriage was split into two halves. The pieces fell to the ground. Large amounts of clear water gushed out of the carriage and rushed towards the crowd. Caught off guard, everyone revealed a dumbfounded expression one after another. Chapter 3697. The people who were implicated all wiped their faces and wiped away the water droplets in their eyes and ears before spitting out several mouthfuls of saliva in succession. Mama, are these the legendary merfolk? A child's clear and melodious voice came from the side, and it carried a trace of curiosity as it rushed into Arbor's ears. This voice made Arbor return to her senses. At this time, Emolien had already moved to her side and grasped her small hand. She asked with a somewhat anxious expression, Jojo, what's wrong? Arbor shook her head, and her icy gaze landed on the ground in front of her. 3 young women were washed out of the carriage along with a large amount of clear water. To be precise, it should be 3 merfolk women. They wore simple chest wraps on their upper bodies, but their lower bodies revealed fishtails that were covered in scars. At this moment, they were huddled together with ghastly pale faces, and their palm-sized pale faces clearly revealed traces of terror and nervousness. A ball of heat floated up in Arbor's chest and abdomen, burning like a raging flame. A wisp of nameless fire followed the little stoic's heart and lungs and burned all the way to the top of her head. Angry at their incompetence, every time she saw these merfolk, they would always be abused to the point that even their parents wouldn't recognize them. They simply disappointed her to the core. Arbor didn't know where this disappointment in her heart came from. Right now, she only felt that her chest was choked by a ball of air, so choked that she wanted to go crazy. She wanted to slaughter people and beat up this bunch of weaklings in front of her. Get up, get up. The little fellow struggled free of Mo Lien's hand and angrily pounced to one of the merfolk women's side. She grabbed her arm and pulled the curled-up person up. Get up. She flung her heavily, causing that trembling merfolk girl to crash heavily into another person behind her. I told you to get up. Did you hear me? At this time, Arbor didn't care that her shoes were wet. She stepped on the water and walked up to that girl with a clatter. She glared at her and said, Stand up. Stand up by yourself. The 3 mermaids were simply scared silly by this fiendish little stoic, but they tactfully straightened their bodies while trembling. It was just that their lower bodies were fishtails, and at this moment, only their upper bodies were raised. However, their fishtails were very flexible and sturdy. Even if they were walking on flat ground, it was not much different from their legs. They swam very quickly as if they were walking on flat ground. The little stoic threw out a sword from her inner world. With a clang, she threw it in front of Mermaid and shouted sternly, "Pick it up!" The three girls stared at her with wide, frightened eyes, and then looked at one another. "I told you to take it!" The little stoic roared angrily. In an instant, the entire southern city street that was bustling with noise instantly quieted down. "Kill him! Kill them!" Arbor pointed at one of the Long family disciples and shouted. It frightened the Long family disciples who were originally standing to the side into taking a few steps back one after another. One of the three mermaids instantly burst into tears. How would she dare to pick up the sword on the ground? She trembled and retreated 2 steps back. A trace of fury burst out of Arbor's eyes. He rushed up and stretched out his leg to kick that cowardly thing, but the sharp-eyed and nimble Mo Lien hugged him from behind. "Jojo, Jojo, trash, trash!" Arbor shouted angrily. Chapter 3698. No one can save you. No one can save you. In his rage, Arbor kicked the broken carriage on the ground. Look at what you've become. From your body to your soul, you're all weaklings, cowards. They didn't even have the courage to pick up their swords to fight back, let alone talk about the future. Emolian hurriedly reached out and pulled her over, gently patting her back as she said gently, "All right, Jojo, all right, don't be angry. Don't be angry, Jojo, be good." Emolian saw that she was very agitated and hurriedly raised her hand to rub the back of her head, whispering, "Why are you angry with them?" Truly a bunch of mud that couldn't be helped up to the wall, making his Chow Chow so angry, simply hateful. Emolian looked up, and her cold gaze shot towards the people of the Long family. Seeing this, all the members of the Long family took a few steps back with a strong desire to survive. A hint of vigilance appeared on their faces. What a joke! If they were really remembered by this master, it wouldn't be a good thing. What happened? A cold rebuke came from behind the crowd. As the people around them squeezed to the sides, a small path was formed in the middle. The woman in the lead was dressed in a pea-green robe, and under her faint crescent-shaped eyebrows, her smile was quite sweet. Arbor glanced over and immediately recognized that this was the Long family's eldest young miss, Long Min, who had gone through the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm with them. When Long Min saw Xiao Mu, he was also slightly startled. Afterwards, he walked up with a smile and cupped his fists in greeting, saying, "Your Highness the Crown Prince Consort, apologies. Did some insensible juniors in the clan disturb you too?" These words were said with a hint of flattery. After all, Long Min had seen Arbor's cultivation on the way here. If it wasn't necessary, she really didn't want to be enemies with this group of people. Going against the royal family was already a very unwise move. "Sister, why are you so polite to them?" A rude roar came from behind Long Min. Long Min turned her head to look, and her brows could not help but furrow slightly. She saw her younger brother, Long Chong, with more than a dozen manservants, roaring as they ran over. Without saying a word, they put on an appearance of wanting to fight. "What are you doing?" Long Min shouted angrily, a trace of annoyance in her eyes. This younger brother of hers was usually spoiled by his mother until he was out of control. He didn't have any other skills, but his ability to cause trouble was top-notch. They dared to be so rude to the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. Did they really think that the Long family could do whatever they wanted in Dragonflame City? After all, the two people in front of him were at the top of the Divine Prefecture. Putting aside their own strength, just the elite forces under them were not something that a mere Long family could resist. Long Chong glared at Xiao Mu indignantly with his bull-like eyes as he hooted, "The Crown Prince Consort can't be so unreasonable, right? What kind of logic is that to casually split open someone's carriage and check their goods?" "Goods?" Arbor's gaze instantly sharpened, and like an arrowhead, he shot unwaveringly at Long Chong opposite him. When Long Chong saw this, he reflexively took a step back. When he realized this almost reflexive action of his entire face suddenly flushed red. He actually retreated in fright from the little stoic's gaze. This was truly an extremely cowardly action. Chapter 3699. But at this moment, no one knew how much fear Long Chong was feeling. He even felt a faint pain as he dragged one of his legs. He remembered that at the palace banquet, it was the little crown princess who ordered a golem to drag him out of the banquet and beat him up. It was this despicable woman who ordered the golem to break one of his legs. Therefore, even today, Long Chong still felt a faint pain in the leg that he had once injured. Even Long Chong vaguely realized that from the moment he saw the little crown princess, this left leg that had been torn off by the golem began to hurt unbearably. Long Chong was very clear that this was a physical defect that was reflected in a psychological illness. It was a reflexive feeling of fear. Although he hated this feeling, there was nothing he could do about it. Long Chong roared fiercely. "Did I say something wrong?" Arbor turned his face and glanced at him indifferently. Long Chong shouted angrily, "All Long family members, listen my orders and bring the carriage back to the Long family." Mo Yin said indifferently, "Open the other carriages." As soon as he said that, countless figures emerged from the crowd and quickly surrounded the carriage. Along with a series of pung pung and pa chi sounds suddenly sounded. The remaining dozen or so carriages were all split open by the purple forest guards. The crowd moved back noisily to make way for him. But a lot of clear water gushed out of the carriage, and 30 to 40 mermen rolled out of the carriage along with the water. Arbor glanced at them and saw that most of these mermen were young women, and there were a few elderly and children. The wounds on the young merman's body were even more messy, and it was obvious that he had suffered even more severe abuse. Among these mermen, some had lacerations on their tails, and some had half of their tails broken. All of them appeared to be in a sorry state, and their faces were extremely pale. Now that they were suddenly able to see the light again, it was obvious that they were somewhat panic-stricken. Long Min looked at this scene with an unsightly expression, and she turned to say to him, "O Yin, isn't His Highness the Crown Prince being too overbearing by doing this?" These mermen were indeed captured by them from the coast. Since they were the prey that they had caught, they should belong to the Long family. Now that the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess had interfered, it was naturally overboard. "Although the Long family is weak, we can't allow your Highness to bully us like this. This is the prey that the Long family obtained. It makes sense no matter what you say." Long Min said coldly and bowed in the direction of the imperial city. "Even if we meet the Emperor in the Golden Palace, tie her up." "Yes." At the young Crown Prince Consort's order, the purple forest guards immediately surged forward without any hesitation. 2 purple forest guards jumped in front of Long Chong's arms behind her back. 2 long swords were placed on the neck of the clamoring Long Chong. Long Min's expression changed abruptly. She struggled against her arms and shouted, "The laws of the 3 states don't explicitly state that we can't hunt mermen." "Slap her mouth." The young Crown Prince Consort interrupted Long Min's words with a stern shout. Without another word, a purple forest guard stepped forward and slapped Long Min's left cheek. Chapter 3700. Long Min was immediately slapped to the face, and a series of illusionary booms sounded in her ears. It was obvious how fast and ruthless this slap was. "Sister." Long Chong had a long sword pressed against his neck, and he shouted angrily, "Is there any law in Dragon Flame City? Can you dispose of human lives just because you hold a position of power? Human lives?" Arbor could not help but snort coldly. He struggled free from Mo Yin's embrace and pounced forward to kick Long Chong in the chest. He kicked twice fiercely and roared angrily. "Do you have any law in your eyes? Human lives? You little beast, you have no ruler, no family, and no country. If you did, would you capture your own family members? Would you do this to them?" Arbor scolded angrily as he went berserk and kicked Long Chong in the chest 17 to 18 times. He kicked Long Chong until he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Long Chong." Long Min's expression changed as she roared angrily. At this moment, the crowd of onlookers could not help but mutter softly. "So, the Long family is really a branch of the merfolk race?" I really didn't expect them to be so vicious. They actually captured their own family members. I heard that the little crown princess's mother, Long Chuyun, is a member of the Long family in the Sea of Forgetfulness. The Long family is the royal bloodline of the merfolk. In the Sea of Forgetfulness, Long is a common surname. All mermaids and mermen are subjects of the royal bloodline. TSK, I didn't expect this branch family to be so vicious. They can even do this to the people of their own family. That's right. Listen to what they said. It's as if these merfolk are goods that can be slaughtered and eaten at will. No wonder the little crown princess is so angry. Bah, those who can treat their own family members like this are really not good people. Crown princess. Long Min twisted her arms that were held behind her back and shouted angrily, "Don't go too far, crown princess. Our aristocratic families and the royal family have always minded our own business. Don't even think about provoking a dispute between us. The fact that the Long family brought so many mermen into the capital is a malicious act." Emolian coldly interrupted Long Min's words. She raised her hand and said calmly, "Now, you're even slandering the crown princess. That's an even bigger crime. Men, capture everyone from the Long family. This crown prince wants to have a good chat with the Long family's head. How did he teach his children to be so disrespectful to the crown princess?" Long Min's entire body quivered, and she hurriedly lowered her head in submission. She said in a small voice, "Long Min's words were too extreme, but I asked Crown Prince to see that Long Min is anxious for her younger brother. That's why, Your Highness, the Long family has no ill intentions. These mermen were actually captured by Patriarch Lin and my father. Mermen have mermaid pearls in their bodies. Your Highness, as long as we get the pearls, we will definitely offer them to His Majesty. We definitely won't dare to keep them for ourselves." Qiao Mu's two small fists tightly clenched together, and her large eyes brimming with hatred and fury glared in Long Min's direction with her pitch-black, round eyes. "Bastard!" Jojo, Emolian suddenly moved to the little fellow's side and hurriedly reached out to pull her into his embrace. He lowered his head with a frown. His slender fingers pried open her tightly curled little hands and stroked the red marks that her fingernails had left on her palm. Chapter 3701. Jojo, don't hurt yourself because of some dead people. Emolian looked down at her in displeasure. If you're this angry, I'll give the order to exterminate the Long family. It's not worth making you this angry over such a small matter. Sir Jojo only felt an unbearable stuffiness in his chest. At the same time, his chest seemed to be burning hot, making his blood boil. Not every mermaid has a mermaid pearl. Hundreds of thousands of mermaids might not even have a single mermaid pearl. I know. Emolian looked down at the little girl whose eyes were red and said helplessly in a low voice, "But not everyone is as smart as my Jojo. There are so many idiots in this world. Aren't they all used to set off my Jojo's incomparable intelligence?" Sir Jojo blinked his large eyes and sniffed his little nose. He punched him neither lightly nor heavily. "I'm so angry. Angry that these mermaids were tortured so miserably each time. She had already handed them knives and given them a chance, but they didn't dare to retaliate. All right. My Jojo, what's there to be angry about?" Emolian turned to look in Long Min's direction, and his eyes, which were as gentle as spring, gradually faded away. A cold voice sounded faintly. "Just make them disappear." Long Min seemed to understand something. Looking at the Crown Prince's eyes, his entire body trembled. "Pass down this Crown Prince's order." The Long family brought a large group of outsiders into the capital without permission. They didn't obtain the Emperor's permission and didn't go through any formalities. They hid it from the capital magistrate and conspired against the law. In order to prevent them from being deceitful, all of them are now in prison and under strict supervision. Order the Ministry of Justice and the capital magistrate to investigate this case. We must investigate the truth. Yes. A large group of purple forest guards rushed over from all directions. Hundreds of long swords and thousands of long swords surrounded the Long family members present. How could the Long family resist when they saw the large group of people surrounding them? They raised their hands in surrender and looked at the surrounding soldiers with pale faces. "Where are these people?" Emolian nodded and pointed in the direction of the merman. The little crown princess had a stoic expression on her face as she said in a fit of pique, "I don't want to care." The crown prince didn't know whether to laugh or cry. With his intelligence, he knew that his wife was just angry at the moment. If he really didn't care about these people and casually drove them out of the city to fend for themselves, his wife would definitely regret it later. He hugged his wife with a smile and said softly, "Then I'll put them in a nearby mansion for the time being. When you're in a good mood, you can go and see them. How about that?" "No. Okay, I won't see you." Emolian lowered his head and nuzzled her small head as he grumbled, "A bunch of weaklings. They didn't even bleed much after being slaughtered, and they even dirted Xiao Qiao's small hands. Just let them fend for themselves in the resort." The little fellow puffed up her cheeks and turned her little face away in a huff. Emolian turned her head and looked in the direction of the merman. She waved her hand and said to Xiao Yi, who was bouncing over, "There's a small villa nearby. You know where it is. Arrange for them to stay there first." "Okay, Your Highness." Arbor was still huffing and puffing, but she didn't turn to look at the merman. Suddenly, she felt a slight chill on her leg. When she looked down, she saw a little merman about 3 or 4 years old who couldn't even swim steadily, hugging her leg. Chapter 3702. An old woman hurriedly swam forward and crossed her arms in front of her chest. She said respectfully and fearfully, "Esteemed Crown Princess of the Divine Prefecture, please forgive my grandson's rudeness. It's because you are filled with a fascinating water spirit power." The mermaid stammered as she explained. There was also a mysterious power that made mere people feel comfortable when they got close. The old woman did not dare to continue. She only looked respectfully at Arbor and sincerely lowered her head. Mermaids and mermen were proud by nature. Normally, they wouldn't even look at the humans on the land. They had always been peace-loving and would not intentionally play with weapons. Except for the elite troops specially trained by the royal family, the other mermaids and mermen could be said to be powerless. They did not have much combat strength, but they had their own pride. Even when they were captured by the Long family, none of them would lower their noble heads. But now, the old mermaid willingly lowered her head in front of this esteemed crown princess, whose name she could not name. She had a strange feeling. It seemed to be an instinct that made her submit to this crown princess in front of her. The 3 or 4-year-old little merman was wrapped around Arbor's leg. He suddenly raised his head and smiled at her, showing his teeth. Her 2 small canine teeth were very cute. Although her small round face was full of dirt and her cheeks were thin due to hunger, her eyes were very bright, so bright that it almost made the sky lose its color. The fury in Xiao Mu's heart inexplicably faded away by quite a bit. She took out a handful of peanuts from her pocket and stuffed them into the little brat hugging her leg. She turned around with a cold expression. Prince Mo's eyes lit up. He hurriedly waved his hand at Xiao Yi and had them send the mermaid back to the villa. He held his wife's hand and boarded the carriage together. As the purple forest guards maintained order and separated the pedestrians, the carriage finally moved again and headed toward the city gate. Arbor turned and looked out the window. Under the urging of the purple forest guard, 30 to 40 mermen moved and swam in the direction of the southern courtyard. Although their fishtails were tough, they were still injured. When they rubbed against the uneven ground, they would occasionally leave a trace of blood. Arbor retracted his gaze and frowned. He pretended to be careless and muttered, "I don't even know if the small villa can fit so many people." Emolian pursed his lips and suppressed the mirth in his voice as he said softly, "I bought that courtyard in the past. It's quite big, and it's a courtyard that lives by the water. There's half a lake in the back, so it can accommodate quite a few people." The little fellow pursed his lips and rolled his big eyes. Then he mumbled softly, "Why didn't I know?" Emolian really couldn't help but want to laugh. She hurriedly reached out and hugged this funny and awkward baby into her arms. She pressed her little head against hers and laughed in a deep voice. You can't blame me for that. When the two of us were on Seacone Planet, I already gave you the title deeds to all the properties under my name for safekeeping. The little fellow humphed awkwardly and didn't say anything else. Yin couldn't help but lower her head and kiss her a few times. She said with a smile, "Why are you so funny? You're the funny one. Your whole family is funny. Humph." Chapter 3703. The little stoic glared at him before retracting her gaze and immediately changing the topic. How much longer until we arrive? We'll arrive in 15 minutes after leaving the city, Yin replied with a smile. Jojo, Arbor suddenly covered his mouth and pointed at the roof of the carriage, indicating for him to listen. Yin was startled, and within seconds, he heard a rather loud flapping of wings. He pulled down the curtain next to him and saw a machine-operated bird fly in from outside. It flapped its wings a few times before folding them up. The bird's face was wooden as it crouched on the tea tray placed on the side. The two of them looked at each other in dismay. They both recognized that this was the machine-operated bird that the Academy used to transmit messages. Hello, Student Yin, Student Arbor. That messenger bird's mouth opened and closed, and Headmaster Yun's voice was transmitted from it. In view of the fact that you've been wandering outside for a long time, this headmaster needs to remind you. This year's Heavenly Yuan ranking competition is about to begin. The preliminaries are set to begin on the 18th of this month. The preliminaries will last for 10 days. The preliminaries' content will be announced on the day of the preliminaries. In order to prevent you two from missing the competition, this headmaster's divine foresight has deduced your location and various after a string of nonsense. Arbor looked at the frowning Yin and pursed his lips. He had already decided to punch this noisy, machine-operated bird out the window. This Yin Piao Miao finally entered his main topic. The Royal Academy has given everyone a time limit of 3 days. You two must immediately return to the Academy within 3 days. Otherwise, your names will be removed. In addition, Yin, Duan Yu, Ming Yasi, and some other people's contribution points are already in the negatives. Arbor, your contribution points are almost reaching 0. The Royal Academy's rule is that people with 0 contribution points must go to the Great Forest alone and stay there for a month. Of course, people with negative contribution points must scram even more. Headmaster Yun's roar came from that machine-operated bird's stomach. The little stoic and Prince Imo silently looked at each other again and both pursed their lips. As the dean, was it really okay for him to be so agitated? Dean Yun calmed his breathing and said in a deep voice, 3 days. I want to see all of you back in 3 days. The Academy hasn't been very peaceful recently. You should know what's going on. My ethereal peak has welcomed 3 waves of people blessed by the heavens. It's all because of you two. Immediately, return within 3 days. The mechanical bird stopped abruptly. Sir Jojo exchanged glances with Prince Mo and snorted disdainfully. How immoral. Wasn't it just because he attracted some enemies? Wasn't it because he was strong enough? If they were ordinary people, Jojo wouldn't have bothered to cause trouble for them. If Principal Yun could hear Jojo's thoughts at this moment, he would definitely spit on her face and say to her, "Thank your ancestors for 18 generations." I reckon that the Academy isn't too peaceful these days. Yin coughed lightly and said, "Otherwise, the principal wouldn't be so agitated. Forget it. Since the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition is about to start, let's set off the day after tomorrow." Arbor rolled his eyes. The day after tomorrow? Jojo has a transportation talisman matrix. We can make it in time. Yin nodded with a grin. We can also make a trip back to the sect on the way. After returning to the Academy, we'll be separated from Jojo. Yin hugged her pitifully. Chapter 3704. We've only been married for 2 days, so let hubby spend more time with Jojo. You. The little crown princess's face inexplicably flushed red. and she punched him hard. Scram. I did scram. Yin blinked and said with a grin, Didn't I scram here? Arbor couldn't resist, chuckling, and rolled his eyes at him in exasperation. The carriage rocked to a stop. Yin lifted the curtain and pulled Arbor out of the carriage before walking toward the court ahead. This court in the suburbs appeared to be unguarded, but in reality, there were hidden guards everywhere. There were no obstructions on the way in, and there was no one at all. The two had just stepped into the courtyard when they heard a displeased voice with a smile. Dawdling, did the journey take this long? Look how long I've been waiting for you two. Xiaomu looked over and saw a man in plain clothes sitting under a camphor tree in the atrium, his posture slender and graceful. He held a cup in one hand as he gazed at them with a beaming smile. Ripples rippled in his peach blossom eyes. Prince Imo immediately blocked his wife's line of sight. Sir Jojo poked his head out from behind him and continued to glance at Duan Yu, who was in the courtyard. What's there to see? Naturally, it's because I'm good-looking. Duan Yu appeared in front of them in a flash and ran to Arbor's side. Jojo, long time no see. Shouldn't you give me a hug first? Hug my ass. Mo Lien brusquely yanked this guy aside and pulled him toward the dungeon. You caught him? Humph. Duan Yu pridefully brushed aside his hand. Why are you pulling me? My hand is only for Jojo to pull. Bah! Mo Lien glared at him, annoyed and amused at the same time. She poked him with her finger and said, Let's go. Mr. Jojo tilted his head and stared at the two men who were messing around in front of him. Suddenly, he shouted, What are you doing? The two of them reflexively distanced themselves and simultaneously turned to look at the expressionless little stoic. Jojo, I've set a trap in the dark and captured that peak immortal venerable. We used up a lot of Godstone cannons. Duan Yu's figure flashed, and he arrived in front of Arbor. He said with a grin, I'll take you to take a look. Mo Lien hurried over and pulled Jojo to her side. I was the one who provided the gods stone cannons. Xiaomu walked down the dungeon. Ronli was previously imprisoned here by you? Both of them nodded at the same time. Then where is he now? Duan Yu pointed here and there, pointing to the sky and then to the ground. They're everywhere. Mr. Jojo rolled his eyes exasperatedly. It meant that he was burned to ashes and blended into the air. Then since Ronli is dead, why did you capture that peak immortal venerable for? Ronli thought we would fall for his lies. Duan Yu chuckled. If venerable immortal Jin Shang and those two spiritual venerables didn't receive enough benefits, how could they be willing to sell their lives for a mere Ronli? So, Arbor narrowed his eyes. They also know that you possess the spirit domain, the two of them said tacitly before glaring at each other. As long as we dispose of these three people, this matter will be considered over, Duan Yu said with a smile. As they spoke, they had already arrived in front of the wooden fenced cages, imprisoning venerable immortal Jin Shang and those two spiritual venerables. Chapter 3705. Inside this cage, the person whose hands and feet were shackled was a middle-aged man with disheveled hair. Seeing the three people approaching, that man fiercely struggled against the iron cuffs on his hands and hissed, Despicable and shameless people. This venerable immortal really didn't expect that a transcendent god realm could be so shameless. These two transcendent god realm cultivators didn't play by the rules at all. First, they put on a hypocritical face and pretended to be friendly with them, even treating them as honored guests. Then, they poisoned them and used godly cannons to deal with them, mobilizing thousands of people to encircle and annihilate the three of them. Merely the experts at the god rank realm numbered over 1,000, let alone those spirit realm cultivators that covered the heavens and the earth like ants. As the saying went, even ants could freaking bite an elephant to death. It was precisely these three who were unlucky. This venerable immortal Jin Shang originally planned to use this opportunity to carry out Plan B and secretly kidnap the little girl, but who knew humans were truly shameless and two-faced people. Sir Jojo's small face was taut as he looked at the middle-aged man who was roaring thunderously inside. What did you two do to anger him to this extent? Do you still need to ask? A light voice landed next to Arbor. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and little Tai Sui popped out of the star domain again and looked with amusement at the middle-aged man who suddenly looked up and glared at them. These two fellows are so wicked. They clearly knew that this person was secretly plotting to capture you, but they didn't do anything and even courteously invited them to eat, drink, and stay in the best residence. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal quickly pulled Sir Jojo's small hand to his side and said earnestly, "Jojo, you can't win against these two-faced fellows. Remember not to get too close to them in the future. They really were too wicked." Emolien quickly pulled his wife back, his phoenix eyes dangerously sweeping a certain venerable immortal who was slandering them. "Shut up. Hey, Jojo, look. I hit the nail on the head with this person's wicked intentions. So he's flying into a rage out of humiliation." Emolien hastily hugged her wifey's waist and immediately declared, "This idea was all Duan Yu's idea." This wasn't the first time he had betrayed his brother. Duan Yu angrily glared back. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal could not help but laugh. At this time, the middle-aged man who was detained in the cage shook the chains desperately, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. The little girl really has a spirit domain. When the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and little Tai Sui came out, they did not avoid these three people. The other two late-stage spiritual supremacy realm cultivators who were being held in solitary confinement also looked sharply at the little stoic. So what if there is? In any case, it has nothing to do with you. Arbor glared at venerable immortal Jinshang and rolled his eyes. It hasn't been easy for the three of you to cultivate to this point. Do you want to die or submit? Make your choice. Venerable immortal Jinshang's eyes flashed with anger. "You want us to submit to you? Damn girl, you splat." A pitch-black whip of light flashed into the cage and landed on venerable immortal Jinshang's body like a bolt of lightning. Venerable immortal Jinshang bellowed in pain, and he glared fixedly at Emolien, who was making a move. He shouted harshly, "Let me out if you have the guts. We'll talk after a real fight." Sir Jojo turned a small face. Sure enough, he saw that the other fellows behind him were rolling their eyes, as if they were cut from the same cloth. Isn't your synchronized expressions a little too comical? Chapter 3706. Especially the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and Little Tai Sui. Weren't the two of them looking down on Duan Yu and Emolien's despicable methods earlier? Why were they rolling their eyes at the same time now, completely disagreeing with venerable immortal Jinshang's idea of fighting with real swords and spears? Shameless fellows, to think that you're all transcendent realm experts. You actually did such a despicable and shameless thing. If we were in the holy domain, I would definitely teach you a lesson. All is fair in war. Duan Yu aloofly interrupted venerable immortal Jinshang's clamor. That Rong Li was very funny, actually deceiving him. How many people did he tell about the spirit domain? Wouldn't everything be revealed after a soul search? Truly a naive person, since they knew that Jinshang and the other two late-stage spiritual venerable realm experts knew about the portable spirit domain. Then they naturally had to control them as quickly as possible. Therefore, the best way was to bide his time and treat him as an honored guest. It was also because venerable immortal Jinshang and the other two fellows were too careless. Moreover, they saw that Duan Yu and Emolien's cultivation levels weren't low, so they didn't dare to fall out with them on the spot. Hence, they wanted to secretly play dirty tricks. Who knew? Let the three of us go. We'll fight. So annoying. Little Tai Sui impatiently interrupted venerable immortal Jinshang. Hurry and hand over a strand of your soul. If they wanted to control a transcendent realm expert, they could only make them hand over a strand of their soul. There was no other way. However, this was also a very damaging method to their pride. When venerable immortal Jinshang and the other two late-stage spiritual venerable realm experts heard this, they instantly trembled in anger, their eyes bulging. Don't even think about it. Arbor turned around and disdainfully said, "Then kill them." So annoying. She also didn't want several inconsiderate subordinates by her side. She also had to guard against any tricks they might play in the future. The four men looked at each other, bewildered. The little girl was truly aloof enough. These were three transcendent realm experts, and they were finally captured alive. Didn't she feel reluctant to kill them just like that? "What's the use?" Arbor said coldly. "You're not on my side, and you want to capture me, take my spirit realm, and keep me for the new year?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal nodded. "Jojo is right. Let's kill him." Then he turned and ran in the direction of Arbor, waving his hand. "I'll leave it to you." Mo Yin and Duan Yu looked at each other before raising their hands at the same time. The two spiritual supremacies in the cage hurriedly cried out, "No, don't. Don't kill me." At this moment, they were really panicking. It was really not easy to cultivate to this level. But now, he was going to lose his life for no reason. Since that was the case, he might as well submit. I'm willing to give you a wisp of my soul," the two spiritual venerables said hurriedly. "You guys." Venerable Immortal Jin Shang suddenly turned his head to look at his companions in the cage. As his hands moved, the sound of chains being pulled could be heard. Little Tai Sui quickly turned around and called out, "Lass." These two fellows agreed. Sir Jojo pattered back and pinched Little Tai Sui's small face in passing. "Why are you pretending to be old?" Every time she saw this 8- or 9-year-old boy call her lass with a sullen face, she had the urge to beat him up. Little Tai Sui puffed up his bun face and looked at this rebellious little thing in displeasure. Chapter 3707. The little stoic took out an oath from her pocket and tossed it in front of the two. "Sign this oath too while you're at it." Although soul remembrance was important, with the heavenly Tao oath's binding power, Sir Jojo would be more at ease with this double guarantee. After all, they weren't on their side, so they had to be on guard. "Zhao Sheng Liang Yi, you really want to submit to someone?" Venerable Immortal Jin Shang looked at his two companions in astonishment. Back then, when they came down from the holy region, they were so high-spirited. They didn't expect to suffer such a huge setback when they returned to the tiny divine continent. The two spiritual supremacies were extremely intelligent people. Since they had already made up their minds, they wouldn't hesitate at all. They took the oath and pen with one hand and signed it. At least there was still hope if they were alive, but there was nothing if they were dead. Venerable Immortal Jin Shang was silent for a while before lowering his head dejectedly. His head drooped almost to his chest, and he appeared extremely dejected. Arbor glanced at him through the wooden fence and then waved his hand, letting the two spiritual supremacies out. He knew her biggest secret, yet he couldn't submit to her. There was no helping it. Every man for himself. Before she was completely strong, she couldn't take any risks. Kindness couldn't save the world. Deal with them. Mo Yin held his wife's small hand and turned to walk out. Venerable Immortal Jin Shang suddenly looked up with a struggling and exhausted expression. He nodded slowly and heavily. "I'm willing to submit." The young couple narrowed their eyes at the same time and glanced sideways at the figures behind the fence. After Venerable Immortal Jin Shang, Zhao Sheng, and Liang Yi left the cage with Arbor's group, they went to the courtyard's living room and sat down. Arbor glanced at the three people and asked, "Now, can you tell me what you originally wanted to do when you came to the divine continent from the holy region?" Venerable Immortal Jin Shang's expression was slightly bitter, and he said with a wry smile, "To tell you the truth, some time ago, someone spread the news that there's a mineral vein in the divine continent. We all came for this. So other than the three of you, there are actually other transcendent realm experts here." Honored Immortal Jin Shang and the other two nodded. "Yes." "What about these people?" "They are not on the same side as us. We are all moving separately and will not interfere with each other," Venerable Immortal Jin Shang said. "Because of the existence of the restrictions of the heavenly Tao, our strength has been suppressed quite a bit." Jin Shang, Venerable Immortal, suddenly lifted his head and looked at Mo Yin the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, and the others in confusion. How did all of you? The cultivation of these 4 people should be above the celestial venerable realm. Jin Shang even felt that with his current cultivation, he couldn't tell how strong 2 of the young men were. This made him feel a little shocked, and his mind was also in a whirl. As a transcendent god, he was not restricted by the heavenly Tao. This kind of thing was really unbelievable. But the truth was right in front of his eyes, and he had no choice but to admit it. It seemed that these young men were all very strange. It was not an injustice for the 3 of them to fall into their hands. Thinking of this, Jin Shang could not help but sigh. He turned to look at Mo Lien and said with a wry smile, "That's all we know. The news of the holy bloodline is very tempting to every transcendent god. You should know that." Chapter 3708. Emolian nodded and took out a holy stone from her inner world, tossing it in front of the trio. The divine province does indeed have a holy meridian. However, you won't be able to find it at the moment. This holy meridian had completely collapsed following the Earth's tremors. In that case, he still couldn't let Hui Feng lead his men to mine. At least, he absolutely couldn't do so before he had enough assurance. Otherwise, if he attracted the attention of those transcendent realm cultivators scattered all over the divine province, Hui Feng's group wouldn't be enough to be slaughtered by them despite their numbers. Supremacy, Immortal Jinshang, and the others' eyes lit up as they landed on that holy stone. They subconsciously reached out to touch that bone-chilling stone. Take this stone to absorb and recover first. Set off with us the day after tomorrow for the Royal Academy. Previously, in order to trick them, Prince Mo had used all sorts of methods to deal with them. Since the 3 of them were considered his people now, he naturally wouldn't treat them unfairly. Supremacy, Immortal Jinshang, was startled, and delight naturally surfaced in his eyes. This holy stone was palm-sized. After absorbing it, not only could it heal his injuries, but it could also advance his cultivation. It truly was a rare item. After this matter was settled, the young couple bid farewell to Duan Yu. When they returned to the city, Arbor and Mo Lien went to the south of the city to settle down the group of mermen. Those miserable mermen had all been settled down at this time and were currently recuperating. Arbor found them, and a slightly older merman came forward and exchanged a few words. He learned that these mermen were captured by the Long family in a small coastal town. It was also because the environment of the River of Forgetfulness had worsened in recent years that a portion of mermen secretly went ashore and built a small village to rest in. As time passed, some small villages actually became small bases for mermen and humans to trade. And the coastal town that these mermen stayed in was such a situation. 10 days ago, those Long family members barged into our town and captured all the mermen. They indulged in the wildest fantasy, believing that a miracle like the merman pearl exists in our bodies. The old mermaid's tone contained a trace of fury when she spoke. These people didn't give us any chance to explain. They just escorted us to the capital. No matter how we explain, they won't listen to us. Crown Princess, is your mother really the first miss of our merfolk race's royal bloodline? Long, Chuyun. Arbor didn't answer the old mermaid's question. He just looked at her and said, "What do you plan to do now?" The old woman looked at her awkwardly. "I hope you don't blame those young ladies. It's not that they're weak. It's just that they don't know how to fight with others. Our merfolk race has always been a peace-loving race. We have never been good at fighting with others." Arbor looked at her coldly. When someone puts a knife to your neck, do you just obediently close your eyes? Arbor stood up and said indifferently, "If you want to leave and go to a safe sea, you can inform the guards and I will let them escort you there. This is the greatest help I can think of right now." The old mermaid opened her mouth and looked at the back of the young crown princess coldly as she left. For a moment, she felt a sense of loss. Chapter 3709. The Crown Princess and His Highness the Crown Prince left for the Academy early this morning. Upon receiving this news, Mu Jingxing of the Mu family's second branch was rather excited. Wouldn't the matter of the family head be left unsettled? The person in question had already returned to the academy, and who knew how many months it would be before she returned. Since that was the case, the Mu family couldn't be without a family head. The old man was bound to nominate another person to temporarily take over the family's affairs. And the person to take over the family's affairs would definitely be him, Mu Jingxing. Mu Jingxing was the one who knew the most about the family's affairs. The eldest son, Mu Jingfeng, was now in a half-dead state, and he was the only one who could continue to contribute in the family. However, it didn't take long for old Master Mu's order to come down. Before the new family head, Arbor, returned home, the third son, Mu Jingyuan, was ordered to temporarily take over the family's affairs, and the elders would assist him from aside. When Mu Jingxing heard this news, he was so angry that he smashed his own study into smithereens. The entire second branch was shrouded in an oppressive atmosphere for several days. Of course, Arbor didn't know that old Master Mu insisted on leaving him such a big mess to take over. She used the transportation array to teleport several times, and then flew back to Red Cloud's Peak with Mo Lien on the Golden Dragon. At the same time, Yu Xiu led a group of purple forest guards, holding the Crown Prince's order, and surrounded the Long family from top to bottom. However, when they kicked open the Long family's door and entered, they found that the entire Long family was empty. It was as if they suddenly and mysteriously disappeared from top to bottom. Not even a single servant was left. That night, a group of mysterious deity realm cultivators entered the prison of Long Yin City's Ministry of Justice and rescued the two brothers, Long Min and Long Chong, from the prison. When the Crown Prince received this news, he was already in the Imperial Academy. He didn't care too much. The three continents were only so big, and the Long family that disappeared had to find a place to stay. The Divine Continent could no longer accommodate them. Song Province, Ming Province, could there be a place for them to hide? Eldest senior sister is back. Eldest senior sister is back. Little Canon Fong Su's voice reverberated throughout the entire Red Cloud's Peak. A crowd of holy water sect sisters clustered around their excited second Ant Master, Yang Shirong, and ran out. The large group of people surrounded Su Shanshan and Arbor in the center. After a period of recuperation and cultivation, Su Shanshan's complexion had improved a lot. That day, after using the Soul Gathering Bell to retrieve eldest senior sister's soul, Arbor tried to use a secret method to help eldest senior sister directly reach the God realm when he was nursing her body. However, it was a pity that she was still half a step behind. Now, eldest senior sister had comprehended 80% of the spiritual water power, but she was still stuck at the half-step divine realm. After using the secret technique, eldest senior sister did not need to go through the 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation anymore. In other words, as long as she stayed at the holy water sect at Rosy Cloud's Peak and carefully entered seclusion for a year, she would definitely be able to naturally break through the threshold of the deity realm one day. Arbor exchanged a few words with his senior and junior sisters and left behind many pills to raise their cultivation. Afterwards, he rushed back to the Imperial Academy with Mo Lien. According to Yun Piaomiao, that swindler, if they didn't hurry back to the Imperial Academy by today, she would erase their names. Fortunately, she had many sets of transportation talisman matrices in her possession. Even if the talisman energy was exhausted, she could just switch to another set and continue the transportation. In the evening, the two finally arrived at Wind Thunder City. Chapter 3710. When the two of them arrived at the entrance of Wind Thunder City, they found a secluded place and released Master Immortal Jinshong and the 2 spiritual paragons from the storage talisman. They let the 3 of them and Mo Lien set up a defensive barrier to block the aura of the opening of the spirit region. Arbor then summoned Qi, Xian, Duan Muqing, and the rest of the 7 of them out of the star region. After a long period of closed-door training, using the spirit breakthrough pill to raise her realm, and taking a medicinal bath to stabilize her body, Qi Xuanchuan's cultivation had already broken through to the 10th level of the spiritual realm. Duan Muqing had entered the initial success stage of a level 15 spiritual master. Although his realm was higher than Arbor's, his actual battle strength was not much of a match. After all, Lady Jojo had a trump card in her hands. Even a transcending god stage would be defeated if they were not careful. Furthermore, Lady Jojo had never relied on medicine to raise her level. When she broke through, she did not even take the spirit breakthrough pill. Of course, this was also closely related to the sacred wood source, sacred water, and sacred earth in her body. She did not need to take any spirit breakthrough pill and could easily break through the bottleneck of her realm. She never felt like she was stuck in the first half of her realm. When the 8 of them stepped into the Wind Thunder City, they saw a swarm of people running towards the Academy Street. Quick, quick! Place your bets in the last 3 minutes. Place your bets. Place your bets. Qi Xianxian grabbed an uncle who was running forward. Hey, uncle, what are you doing? Hey, little girl, did you just come to Wind Thunder City? The people from Tianhua Academy are here to challenge the Royal College again. Hee, the daughter of Tianhua Academy's vice principal is really a beauty. The uncle revealed a mesmerized expression, causing Qi Xianxian to hurriedly retract her hand and throw him a few steps back. Do you want to go over and take a look? Let's go back to Misty Peak first and report to Principal Yin. Arbor rolled his eyes and said, otherwise, he will deduct our contribution points for today. Yes, my contribution points are almost gone. Actually, when we went to the Sun Moon Mystery Realm this time, didn't we agree that our days would not be deducted? Why are you deducting our contribution points now? Maybe the dean's brain went haywire. Little Fatty concluded, and everyone looked at him. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Little Fatty couldn't help but smile foolishly at them. Isn't that the case? The group of people entered the inner city and asked honored Immortal Jinshang and the other 2 to find a place to stay. The rest of them headed towards the Misty Peak. While they were still at the bottom of the floating peak, they heard Yun Piaomiao's voice faintly float down. Come up. Without a word, everyone rushed up to Ethereal Peak and saw the dean sitting alone in the courtyard, sipping tea in a relaxed manner. Seeing everyone enter, Yun Piaomiao stood up with a smile and said, everyone, welcome home. The little fatty could not help but mutter softly, this smiling fox, whoever believes him will be unlucky. Qi Xianxian represented her teammates and took a step forward. She placed her hand across her chest and bowed to Principal Yun. She immediately asked, Principal, what's up with our contribution points? Why are they all deducted? Yun Piaomiao held the teacup calmly and nodded at her. It's very simple, because you have been outside for too long. The Academy will automatically take a portion of your contribution points and convert them into holidays. Chapter 3711. So now, other than Arbor, all of you have negative contribution points, Yin Piaomiao said calmly as he sipped his tea. Logically speaking, you should immediately head to the Great Forest in the north-facing forest for a month of individual training, Headmaster Yin said calmly. However, in view of the fact that the Tianyuan ranking competition is starting in 7 to 8 days, this headmaster will make an exception and give you all a chance to turn over a new leaf. Headmaster Yin sipped his tea and said, recently, people from Tianhua Academy came to our school to cause trouble. You must have heard about this, right? The little stoic, Imo Yin, Duan Muqing, and the others all shook their heads at the same time in tacit understanding, indicating that they were completely unaware of this matter. Headmaster Yun's expression stiffened. He coughed lightly and said, you don't even know about such an important matter. People from Tianhua Academy set up an arena on Academy Street and challenged our Royal Academy's Divine Prefecture branch. Many students have already gone to accept the challenge. You guys, as outstanding students of our Royal Academy's Divine Prefecture branch, you should take the lead and set an example. This Tianhua Academy is an academy within the underworld region. They came specifically to challenge your Divine Prefecture branch students. Headmaster, you summoned us back in such a hurry because no one can stop the Huatian Academy from kicking down the door, right? Xiao Mu interrupted him and voiced the suspicions in everyone's hearts. Nonsense. Headmaster Yin coughed and stood up. He paced back and forth in front of them with his hands behind his back. Our Royal Academy has produced many outstanding students. Who knows how many elite students there are among the seniors? How can we not handle the situation? Everyone replied with an "oh." What oh? Headmaster Yun turned around and glared at the little stoic and the others. Hey, in any case, I won't let you fight in the arena competition with Tianhua Academy's students for free. As long as you win a match, you'll receive 1,000 contribution points. If you participate in a team battle, you'll receive 5,000 contribution points. How about it? This headmaster is very kind to you, right? The little fatty, Qi Xian, and the others said in unison, this Tianhua Academy must be very troublesome for the headmaster. Little Noodles nodded his head in agreement. Based on his understanding of this stingy dean, it was impossible for him to be so generous. The reason why he was so generous must be because he had a request in mind. While Principal Yun was fuming with rage and glaring, he heard the little stoic say crisply, 2,000. 2,000 contribution points for every victory. 10,000 for group battles. I won't do it for less. You, Dean Yun, really want to punch her in the face. Why don't you just go and snatch it? Since we can't come to an agreement, then forget it. Arbor turned around and led his team members to leave. Dean Yun gritted his teeth. We'll do as you say. Fuck, if not for the fact that the people from Tianhua Academy were all new students, he would not have had to stop the seniors from coming out to battle just to save his face. Also, how about we reduce the deduction of contribution points by half? The little stoic shuffled next to Headmaster Yun and used her small elbow to nudge Yun Piaomiao's sleeve. All of you scram. Dean Yun's roar reverberated down from Ethereal Peak and shook the entire inner city. The hearts of the students who were cultivating in the academy trembled for no reason. Chapter 37:12. When the little stoic and her companions returned to Donglin Court, Duanyu was already sitting under the pear tree in the middle of the hall with a grin. He had brewed a pot of spirit tea and had been waiting for them for a long time. Everyone was feeling thirsty. When they saw the dozen or so small teacups on the table, they all picked them up and poured tea for themselves before pouring it into their mouths. It was 10 o'clock at night. The setting sun slowly shed its gorgeous robes and changed into a dark outer garment. A night breeze brushed past their faces, and the young men and women under the pear tree couldn't resist chattering after drinking their tea. Why is Dean Yun so angry? Duanyu was curious and looked directly at his Jojo. His intuition told him that it was most likely the little stoic's credit that the dean was so angry. Oh, Jojo is so annoying. Qi Xian was full of admiration as she chattered. Jojo negotiated with Dean Yun and had him reduce the contribution points deducted from us during this holiday by half. Qi Xian drew a circle with her finger, indicating that everyone present would have their contribution points reduced by half. The dean told you to scram in the end. Duanyu exclaimed with a wink. That's right. The little fatty smiled honestly. That's why we scrammed down. Everyone. Liu twitch your mouth and kick the fatty. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Let's go and prepare some ingredients. We'll eat roast beef tonight. That's right. Tianhua Academy came from Ming Province and specifically said that they want to have 100 matches with the Divine Province branch. Do you know about this? The little stoic nodded. The dean promised us that we can earn 2,000 contribution points for every match we win. We can win 10,000 contribution points if we win the team battle. Duanyu looked dumbfoundedly at Lian, who was beside Jojo. When he saw the latter throw him a imagine-it-yourself look, he couldn't help but cough silently. This is also the result of Jojo's negotiation with Dean Yun. The little stoic's expressionless face was taut as she turned to walk towards her room in her court. She grumbled as she walked, so stingy. He's already so old, but he's still so calculated with a child. What's wrong with reducing contribution points by half? What's wrong with raising the price after winning? He was the one who racked his brains to call us back to save the day. Shouldn't you treat us better? He even said that I'm stingy. He's the stingy one. Everyone watched her leave, speechless. A cough. Chow Chow is actually quite stingy, little fatty said honestly. Jiang Shaoxing kicked his butt again. This guy really wants to die. The little fatty was dragged away with an aggrieved expression. That night, the group of people had a lively dinner in Donglin Garden to celebrate their first day back at the academy. After Prince Mo returned to his room, he hugged his wife lovingly. Jojo, let's go to the arena tomorrow and earn a few million contribution points. You won't have to worry about not having enough contribution points when you apply for leave in the future. The little stoic also thought the same. Contribution points weren't of much use to her. They were just used to offset her vacation. We can go together tomorrow. Our dear Mo rubbed his wife's head in satisfaction. He thought that he would immediately return to the weapon refining hall to refine weapons after returning to the academy and will be separated from Jojo during the day. Chapter 37:13. Just thinking about it made him sad. They were just newlyweds, and he could no longer stick to his Jojo. Being forced to separate from one spouse, that kind of feeling was really unbearable. Sir Jojo punched him on the head in annoyance. You're only separated during the day, but at night, you still have to return to Donglin Court together. Previously, she had thought that this guy was overthinking things. Mo Yin pursed his lips and grabbed her little hand that was hitting him. Jojo, you hit your husband, and your husband's heart hurts. Arbor was angry and amused at the same time. She reached out and pinched his cheeks, making him make a funny face. You're so annoying. No, if you find me annoying now, what will happen in the future? Mo Yin reached out and rubbed her little face as he nagged. Xiao Mu couldn't resist snickering before bursting into laughter. Mo Yin supported his chin with one hand and looked at his little wife with a smile. How happy! I feel that this little girl's smile is gradually becoming more frequent. The next morning, when the sun had just risen, the long-awaited sound of a broken basin rang out again. Students, the morning is the golden time of the day. It's time to wake up and train. Students, it takes about an hour to travel from Donglin Court to the Academy District. It's time to wake up, time to wake up, time to wake up. Qi Xian wore a nightcap and wandered out of the room like a ghost. She stared blankly at the kitchen maid for a long while before she could not help but shout, "There are no classes today." To be exact, there were no classes for the past few days. Since the dean had arranged for them to challenge, trample, Tianhua Academy, why would he be so stupid as to arrange classes for them to waste their time? The kitchen maid served up a big bowl of sumptuous food and continued to shout. No classes? That's great. Quickly finish your breakfast and go into seclusion to train. Could this kitchen maid be the dean's secret spy, lying in ambush here to supervise their training? Why did it feel like he was so excited in the morning? He was even more excited than students like them. Little Fatty yawned as he walked out of the room. He moved a stool and sat beside Qi Xian. Xian, we're going to the arena today. She was so sleepy. She didn't know if it was because of the change of environment, but she felt that she didn't sleep well last night. In the past, when he rested in the little stoic's spirit domain, it was a small space of its own without any noise to disturb him. When he woke up, he would feel that his spirit energy was abundant. Yesterday, when he slept in the side room, he felt too tired. Outside, the sky was full of noise. Early in the morning, he was knocked awake by a broken basin. After washing up, they felt a little better. After eating breakfast, his soul finally returned to its original position. Duan Yu had already changed into a neat school uniform in his room. When he pushed open the door and walked out, he was met with the gazes of his little companions. I'll go with you guys to take a look today. There is nothing to do in the room anyway, so it would be great to go over and watch the fun. He walked to the courtyard and sat beside the little stoic and Mo Yin, eating breakfast with them. Little Fatty and his group all wore the same white school uniform, and each of them appeared to be in high spirits. The little stoic took out a large red cloak from her inner world and put it on. She raised her hand and shouted, "Let's go," taking the lead to walk out the door. Everyone, Jojo put on a large red combat cloak. Chapter 37:14. This was the prelude to causing trouble. The little friends stared at Sir Jojo's back as he left, and their eyes lit up. Their Jojo was going to battle. What were they waiting for? At the same time, on the ethereal peak, a circle of bare stones was formed, forming a small courtyard. Principal Yin was sipping tea with a satisfied expression on his face. He was enjoying the spiritual tea that he had dug out from the little stoic girl when he suddenly looked up. He saw an old man with white hair and a long beard walking towards him with a smile on his face. Elder Ko, what brings you here for a chat today? Principal Yin raised his hand and invited the old man to sit down. Elder Ko stroked his beard and said with a smile, I have a lot of free time every day, and there hasn't been much going on in the cultivation hall recently. Most of the matters are taken care of by the teachers, and there is no need for me to step in. On the other hand, Dean, shouldn't you be very anxious? Why do you look so calm and collected? Why? Has the matter with the Tianhua Academy been resolved? Yin Piao Miao snorted. Although it hasn't been resolved, it's not far from being resolved. Oh, you're so confident. The old man muttered in a low voice and sized up Yun Piao Miao again. So, you found someone to deal with the Tianhua Academy students? Don't blame me for reminding you. The new batch of students from the Tianhua Academy are all top-notch. To be honest, the Tianhua Academy has really put in a lot of effort this time. I don't know where they got such a monstrous group of students to specially come and challenge our royal school. Among the seniors in the royal school for the past 2 years, I have never seen such outstanding students. All right, stop praising others and diminishing our own morale. Principal Yin waved his hand and said, just wait for a good show later. The past few days have been terrible. Principal Yin had been extremely sullen. Ever since the bunch of bastards from the Tianhua Academy had come to challenge them, the principal had been extremely depressed. It was impossible for the royal school to not have any students who were not good enough to deal with their students. But the problem was that the other party's tutor had made it clear to them from the very beginning that this batch of new students were the freshmen that Tianhua Academy had just accepted this year. If Principal Yun had sent some older students who had been in the academy for 3 to 4 years to deal with this batch of new students, he would have already lost. Regardless of whether the Huatian Academy's teacher was speaking the truth, since the other party had said that they were new students from their academy, the Royal School's team of new students naturally could not admit defeat. Dean Yin stood up in high spirits and walked out of the courtyard in large strides. All right, it's time to go over and watch a good show. Today's weather was very good, so it was time for this Dean to hold his head high. Elder Kut chuckled. With a hint of doubt and curiosity in his heart, he followed Dean Yun's footsteps and left Ethereal Peak, heading towards the arena area in the outer city. Today was the same as the previous 2 days. The betting area of the arena was already packed with people early in the morning. However, after a few consecutive matches where it was all one-sided, most of the people who had come to place their bets had bet on Tianhua Academy. Hence, even if they won the match, they would not earn much money and would only be able to join the fun. Get out of the way. A large fat palm pushed the burly man who was blocking the way to the side, as if he was carrying a chicken. The onlookers sucked in a breath of cold air, their eyes filled with astonishment. Chapter 37:15. The burly man who was being lifted up single-handedly had a large build. Based on his weight alone, he should be over 180 caddies. However, it looked like this person lifted him up effortlessly as though he was lifting a small chick. How could this not be shocking? It's His Excellency Gago. Waves of worshipful exclamations came from the crowd. The way ordinary people looked at high-level cultivators was truly as reverent as a god. With reverence on their faces, they subconsciously retreated to the sides, leaving a path in the middle that could allow 3 people to walk side by side. The man who was respectfully addressed as His Excellency Gago looked to be in the prime of his life. His muscular body was bulging with muscles. When he stood in the crowd, he was like a small hill that was several times wider and thicker than ordinary people. This Vice Captain Gago came together with a beautiful woman. This beautiful woman with a snake-like figure was Tianhua Academy's captain, Niao Rao. Her seductive figure was delicate and boneless. The two of them had the highest cultivation levels among Tianhua Academy's new students. Nie Yaorao was a level 15 great spiritual master who possessed a 9th level wood spirit. Meanwhile, Gago was a level 15 great spiritual master who possessed a 9th level spiritual fire. These two people's cultivation levels could be said to have reached the peak of the spiritual realm. They were definitely among the top figures among the new students. Who will the Royal Academy send out to accept the challenge today? Following the captain and vice captain were 15 Tianhua Academy students. The one who spoke was a youth with a head of glossy black hair and a disdainful gaze. Most of their cultivations were level 10 great spiritual masters and above. Even if they were placed in the Royal Academy, they would be considered dazzling rising stars among the new students. Biao Yang was a level 12 great spiritual master with an 8th level spiritual fire. His strength was second only to the two captains, and he held the position of a small strategist in the new students' team. The Royal Academy's people are here. Someone shouted loudly, and the crowd instantly became rowdy. It's the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince of the Divine Province is here. The eyes of the Duan family's third young master, Duan Tianya, brightened. He turned to look at the path that the crowd had opened up. Sure enough, he saw the Crown Prince's party walking over. The little stoic student expressionlessly walked to the front. Her academy uniform paired with a bright red, ostentatious cape instantly attracted everyone's attention. Qin Zhou hastily squeezed out of the crowd and excitedly bounced around Duan Yu. Duan Yu, you're finally back. Hey, let me tell you, these 2 days the people from Tianhua Academy have been really arrogant. We must teach them a lesson later. The robust man, like a small mountain, Gao Xiu, turned his head, and his gaze landed on the delicate little stoic. He furrowed his brows for no reason. Tianhua Academy's new student team will not bully the weak and bully a little girl. Get a few sturdy ones to fight. Everyone looked at each other and subconsciously glanced at the sturdy Gado. If this guy looked down on the stoic-faced little crown princess like this, he was probably going to be in trouble later on. While he was thinking, he saw the little stoic Prince Mo, Qi, Xian, and the other 8 people had already leaped onto the stage. 9 people from the Divine Prefecture Branch Challenge Huatia Academy's new student team. The little stoic said coldly, "Enough nonsense. Send someone out and begin." What a joke. If they didn't beat up the 17 people from Tianhua Academy, how could they earn those 2,000 contribution points per round? Back then, they had agreed with the dean that they would get an additional 2,000 contribution points if they won a round. That was for all the team members. The little stoic looked at the 17 people as if she was looking at 34,000 contribution points. Chapter 37:16. This gaze carried a hint of naked judgment, causing G.A. Su, who was opposite him, to feel his hair stand on end. He actually felt that the young lady in front of him was behaving strangely. How was that possible? This young lady looked like a little girl in her teens. Her hair was not even fully grown, and she actually dared to challenge the Tianhua Academy. She was truly a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger. Arbor had just finished his sentence when Mata took a step forward and said with a smile, "Weren't the Tianhua Academy so full of themselves these past 2 days? Why are none of them daring to come up the stage to fight now?" One of the Tianhua Academy's students immediately stepped forward, but he was stopped by a middle-aged man with a green scar on his face. "Hey, don't be so anxious. Before the competition, let's set the rules first." This middle-aged man with a green scar was the teacher who had brought the students from the Tianhua Academy to the royal school to cause trouble. His slender eyes were shining with a cunning light. He squinted his eyes and carefully sized up Arbor, Emo Lien, and the rest. These few people gave him a feeling that something was not right. It was as if there was an invisible pressure surrounding them. But looking at their age and the spiritual energy that they exuded, they did not seem to have a high level of cultivation. "My little friends from the Divine Academy, how do you intend to compete? Is it a one-on-one battle or a group battle?" The teacher with the green scar on his face laughed and said, "If it is a group battle, the Tianhua Academy will not take advantage of you. We will send out people with the same number of people as you to battle." Qi Xian, little fatty, and the others looked at each other and winked at each other. The little fatty, Ko Hongwon, took a few steps forward and gave a kind and friendly smile, saying, "Fellow student from the Huatian Academy, you have come from afar and are trying your best to invite us to a friendly spar. The new students from the Divine Academy of the Royal School will naturally do our best to cooperate." Everyone rolled their eyes at the same time. Fatty's words were quite funny. Everyone knew that the Tianhua Academy had come to provoke the Royal School. What did Fatty want to cooperate with them for? Should we work together to beat them up? The scarred instructor was obviously very satisfied with the Fatty's compliments. He smiled and said, "Since both of us don't have any big problems, let's have a friendly one-on-one challenge. What do you all think?" "All right." The students of the Tianhua Academy roared in unison, their voices shaking the heavens as they eagerly responded to their mentor. The little stoic impatiently rolled her eyes. "A load of nonsense. If you want to fight, then let's fight. What's the point of talking so much nonsense before fighting?" Yin could not help but chuckle. "Be patient, Jojo. They won't have a chance to talk later. Let's be considerate of others." Arbor thought that was right. He secretly took out the storage talisman in his inner world and prepared to fight at any time. "Let my husband take the first round." Yin patted her little head and said. Arbor blinked and nodded reluctantly. "All right, then be careful." Qi Xian, Mata, and the rest instantly looked at Arbor and Yin strangely. The little crown princess actually asked His Highness the Crown Prince to be careful? They understood. Wasn't she just asking His Highness the Crown Prince to hold back his strength and not kill them all at once? Chapter 37:17. Since it is a one-on-one match, for the sake of fairness, we will send out the same 8 members as your Royal Academy's Divine Lands team. No need. Mata immediately waved his hand and rejected the leader's words. He laughed and said, "The Tianhua Academy is a guest from afar. As the host, we must do our best to let our guests come happily and leave satisfied." What a joke. With 9 less people, wouldn't they lose a lot of contribution points? Of course, they couldn't just let them pass. The leader with the scar on his face was taken aback, but he laughed and nodded. Since the students of the Divine Lands Academy are so confident, then all right. Let our Tianhua Academy's 17 people experience your skills one by one. Don't cry when the time comes. He had wanted to leave them some face, but after a battle, their spiritual power would be almost completely depleted. These people actually dared to challenge 17 people with just 9 people. That meant that 8 of them would have to fight twice. The leader with the scar on his face looked at the little fatty and the rest, a cold smile on his face. Since the rules of the competition are a one-on-one fair duel, you're not allowed to summon your spiritual beasts, use poisons, hidden weapons, and other supplementary items. During the competition, you are allowed to use elixirs, such as spiritual rejuvenation elixirs. Do you have any objections to this? The little fatty and the rest shook their heads in unison. The leader with the scar on his face smiled. Before each round, there are 3 minutes to choose the members. After 3 minutes, if no decision is made, it will be taken as a forfeit. Everyone nodded again. The leader with the scar on his face smiled satisfactorily. These are the rules for now. Do you have anything else to add? After the one-on-one match, we will proceed to a group battle, Sir Jojo said expressionlessly. You can choose 8 members from the 17 who are in the best condition to battle with us. What a joke, 10,000 contribution points per person. It would be a waste not to earn it. This time, they had to earn as much as they could to prevent their contribution points from going into the negatives every few days. They also had to face the ridiculous mission of going to the Great Forest to train for a month. A strange look appeared on the scarred-faced leader's face. After pondering for a moment, he exchanged glances with the enchanting beauty leader. After exchanging glances, they nodded and said, "All right, let's do as this young friend says." Arbor, Little Fatty, and the others jumped off the stage one after another, leaving a large space on the stage. Prince Mo stood there expressionlessly, waiting for the Tianhua Academy's students to arrive. This guy did not have a shame of a transcendent god bullying a small fry at all. His face was indifferent, and no one could tell from his expression at all. Duan Yu glanced at him and couldn't resist silently spitting at this guy. In terms of the level of shamelessness in the world, if this guy claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim first. That old fool with a scarred face from the Tianhua Academy kept saying that for the sake of fairness. He wanted to have a fair, one-on-one match with the Divine Prefecture Branch Academy, who knew that the person in front of them was not a spirit realm or deity realm freshman, but a transcendent realm. Even Duan, you had to admit that this guy's strength was probably just a smidgen higher than his. If he was not mistaken, this guy's true strength was about to break through to the late hierarch realm. Chapter 37:18. This guy's cultivation speed was truly very strange and abnormal. Previously at the Red River Canyon, he was probably only at the late stage of the venerable immortal realm, possibly not even at the peak stage. That was why they were somewhat helpless against the temple master of the Temple of the Gods at that time. However, they didn't expect that this guy's cultivation would soar by leaps and bounds in just a few short months. This was definitely related to the Mo Lien seal in his body. It was just that this guy usually hit it rather well and didn't say anything. Although Duan, you didn't say anything, he already sensed that this guy's Mo Lien seal might be the type that would become stronger in the later stages of undoing it. Once the seal was undone, his cultivation would increase even more rapidly in the later stages. However, this would also cause his cultivation to be unstable and his cultivation to be false. This guy would probably have to enter seclusion for a while to stabilize his cultivation. At this time, a female member of the Huatian Academy had already leaped onto the stage. Her gaze was somewhat blatantly sizing up Mo Lien, and her eyes revealed some interest. The man in front of her was very outstanding, so she really couldn't bear to be ruthless. This female member smiled coquettishly at Prince Mo, and there seemed to be a faint glow blossoming from the corners of her eyes. Little big brother, you have to be careful. This little sister also doesn't want to hurt you. The woman threw Prince Mo a tender and sweet look. However, what annoyed her was that this young man in front of her didn't even look at her out of the corner of his eye. He just stood there nonchalantly, and his entire body was full of openings. It was as if the moment she made a move, the other party would immediately collapse. This woman's brows creased slightly, and she immediately summoned a tasseled feather fan from her inner world. Raising her body, she pounced towards Prince Mo at a speed comparable to a streak of light. This punk was so arrogant, so she would let him suffer a little so that he wouldn't always be so condescending. The feather fan in the woman's hand instantly transformed into a sharp blade, aiming straight for Mo Lien's chest. With a slash of this spirit weapon, the woman was confident that she could leave a mark on the man in front of her. A mark? The woman who attacked suddenly widened her eyes in midair. There was no other reason. The man who was standing upright slightly raised his hand and waved his sleeve. Her body flew out uncontrollably, and the feather fan in her hand flew out of her hand and landed in the man's hand. Everyone below the stage couldn't help but gasp. Under Prince Mo's gentle pinch, the feather fan turned into a pile of scrap metal and fell to the ground with a rustling sound. To be able to crush a spirit weapon with just one hand, what kind of cultivation was this? Everyone looked at the man in the ring with fear in their eyes. To be honest, this was the first time they had seen the crown prince display his true strength in front of others. Normally, there would be no chance for the crown prince to do this. Whoever dared to cause trouble in front of His Highness had already been dealt with by the Shadow Guards, moreover, in the Academy, other than those in Dragon Flame City who were more familiar with the Crown Prince. A portion of people only knew that the Crown Prince was brilliant in weapon refinement, but they didn't know that his cultivation had also reached an unparalleled level. With a wave of his sleeve, he sent that female member flying out like trash. At this moment, everyone's gaze was focused on the flustered female member with a flushed face. Chapter 37:19. The pitiful woman was smashed into the arena with her body, creating a human-shaped crater. After a long time, the woman finally crawled out of the crater. Her face was a mix of green and black, white and yellow, and was extremely beautiful. Damn it. I didn't even manage to touch the corner of the other party's clothes before I was directly swatted away like a fly, facing such a delicate and beautiful woman. This man actually dared to do such a cruel thing. One unromantic guy. That female team member supported her waist and groaned as she climbed up from the ground. Her pair of seductive eyes were red as she opened her mouth. This little brother, you're too ruthless. Prince Immerse still did not even look at her. From the moment this woman went up on stage and used her lousy seduction techniques on him, Immerse had already thought of how to deal with her. Seeing that she was struggling to stand up, Prince Immerse directly stretched out a finger and tapped the air in the direction of the woman's head. Bam! The female team member from Tianhua Academy only felt a majestic and mighty aura rush towards her, instantly sending her flying. The woman once again fell into the human-shaped pit that she had formed earlier. She was a little dumbfounded after being smashed. For a long time, she didn't realize that she had been sent flying again. Furthermore, she had been sent flying with just a lift of the finger. What did this mean? This meant that she could not even withstand a lift of a finger from the opponent. The faces of the teachers and students from Tianhua Academy all changed as they looked sharply at the young man in the middle of the arena. From the start to the end, this person did not even take half a step. He only waved his sleeves and lifted his finger. The female team member from Tianhua Academy was smashed into the crater and could not crawl back up. Scarface's expression changed as he raised his head to look in Immerse's direction. He opened his mouth several times, but did not say anything. In the end, it was Tianhua Academy's team leader, Nieyao, who waved her hand and had two team members go up to the arena to pull out their own team member from the crater. Only then did this one-sided farce come to an end. When everyone saw the female team member being pulled out of the pit, their eyes involuntarily revealed a trace of sorrow. This unlucky woman's entire face was almost flattened. Her nose and mouth were crooked, and saliva was dripping from her mouth uncontrollably. She was completely crushed to the point that her eyes and mouth were crooked. Nieyao glanced at Immerse gravely, her eyes throbbing with fury. The first battle between Tianhua Academy and the Royal Academy had ended in such a bizarre manner. It had to be said that the faces of the teachers and students of Tianhua Academy had been completely disgraced. But in reality, if they knew Immerse's true cultivation level, they probably wouldn't feel embarrassed. They would only look down on Prince Immerse for bullying the weak. Shameless to the extreme, Immerse jumped down from the arena and walked to his wife's side with a grin. "Wife, isn't your husband awesome?" Arbor nodded her little head. Her husband had used such an effortless method to crush the people from Tianhua Academy. In that instant, the atmosphere of the battle had reached a boiling point. The Royal Academy students who had been sullen for the past few days were now clamoring for Tianhua Academy to quickly send their second team member up to the arena. The leader with the scarred face chuckled and waved his hand with a cold face. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.